What if there were a bunch of Pokemon of every type? Let's find out. Hey everyone, Brandon here. We have been making Pokemon of every type videos since July of last year. We've come a long way since then, so I thought what better way to show off how far we've come and cap off the year than to make a marathon of every Pokemon of every type video. This will be a mostly unedited marathon, so you can see videos you may have missed if you're new, or just let it play in the background. With that said, enjoy every Pokemon of every type.
Meowth is one of the only Pokemon to have 2 regional forms, which led many to question, what would a regional form of Meowth of each type look like? Well, today, I'm here to answer that question. Let's get started. Before we begin, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Only about 10% of you guys watching are subscribed, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. One more thing, we now have memberships on the channel. Becoming a member at any level really helps me keep these videos coming, so if you join today, that would be greatly appreciated. There are also some awesome perks that come with being a member, like exclusive emotes you can use in the comments, sneak peeks at upcoming videos, and even getting videos a day early. So go check it out. Anyway, on to what we came here for. Meowths!
That's right!
So we already have 3 of our types occupied with Normal, Dark, and Steel from the original Meowth and its existing forms. So that leaves 15 types to be filled. So why don't we begin with the types of the starters, Grass, Fire, and Water. Starting us off here is Liweeka Meowth, a grass type form for Meowth. This Meowth hails from the Liweeka region over on Instagram, and is inspired by panthers and vines. It is adapted to the dangers of Liweeka's lush jungles, and they use their vine-like tails to swing around the jungle. Let's serve up some heat with this fire type regional form of Meowth from the Zorneo region over on Instagram. This Meowth is a protector of the forests of Zorneo, and can use its flammable whiskers as darts. A water-type Meowth was a tricky one to find, but there are 2 that I managed to find that are super cool. Meet Nenglendian and Newfoundorian Meowth. Both are based on catfish, with Newfoundorian Meowth resembling more of a sailor, and Nenglendian Meowth taking on more fish-like features with its coin turning into more of a scale. This was actually the only art I could find of Nenglendian Meowth, because the original creator hasn't made a digital version of it. This is actually from a group piece including a bunch of Meowth forms across Instagram. Some will even appear later in this video. This was done by the talented Cinderil, so make sure to go show them your support. Next up, we have a pair of Meowth coming from the Canberra region. Here are the 2 forms of Canberran Meowth, Ice and Ghost type. These forms came about because of a rapid increase of Meowth in the Canberra region. So a containment law was put into effect. Some Meowth fled into the icy mountains, while others fled to large urban areas. Many never escaped, and at night in the urban areas, you can hear the wailing of Canberran Meowth seeking justice. For the rock type, my own region, Cornera, is home to a rock type Meowth form which we discussed in our regional variants video, so go check that out if you haven't. Don't be shocked by this next form, it's an electric type Meowth from the Roviero region. This Meowth is an untamed apex predator that can run at lightning fast speeds. There is also this really amazing electric type Meowth done by the Maui region over on Instagram. They actually also did this next regional form. It's a poison type Meowth. This Meowth roams the sewers and canals of large cities, and it carries a large amount of toxins in its bite. A fairy type Meowth has been featured a lot in the Fakemon community. So, I had to pick what I thought was best, and this one has to be my favorite. Meet Wescoan Meowth. This is a more domesticated version of Meowth. Because of all the love it has been shown over the generations in Wesco, it has adapted its behavior to match and is known to show a gentle love for those who care for them. Next up is Psychic, and we can't help but go with the iconic Eldu form Meowth from the fan game Pokemon Xenoverse and Elite Four over on Instagram. In ancient times, this Meowth was considered sacred, which has led to this Meowth's quality of life being much higher. This has also led it to become more superb, but also more fussy. For the fighting type Meowth, we look to none other than the Mojave region, which we just interviewed the creator of the region, TubbsAZ, on the Just Like Magic podcast, so go check that out if you missed it. Anyway, here is Mojavan Meowth. This little guy is based on cowboys, and it just works so perfectly. For these next 2 types, I had a hard time finding decent concepts for them. So, I put out a story on Instagram, and my good friend Malmistex reached out with a design he had been working on for a ground type Meowth for his region, Talasia. And we even collaborated and made a flying type Meowth as well. So here is Talasian Meowth and our flying type Meowth. Thalassian Meowth is based on Sphinxes and actual Persian cats. The flying type is based on storm clouds and the Himalayan cat. A dragon type Meowth. How would one go about that? Well, Dragoboy1, living up to his name, managed to bust out an amazing concept for one with this Meowth form based on chimeras. Lastly, we have the most oddball type that no one has touched from what I have seen, and that is bug type. From that same Instagram story I mentioned earlier, another artist reached out, JM Pokey, with this awesome concept for a bug type, mixing aspects of a scarab and a scorpion, and it just looks incredible. So there you go, a Meowth for every type. Which one was your favorite? Let me know in the comments down below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I would love to do more videos like this, so please show your support to let me know if I should make more. Also, make sure to go follow all of the artists and regions whose Meowths I showed off today. They are all listed in the description down below. Anyway, that's all for now, so I will see you guys next time. Eeveelutions, the slang term for the 8 single-typed evolutions of Eevee. Since the very first generation of Pokemon, fans have wondered what an evolution of every type would look like. So let's answer that question. So obviously we have the 8 existing evolutions, which are Water, Electric, Fire, Psychic, Dark, Grass, Ice, and Fairy. That leaves us with 10 potential evolutions. But before we start exploring what they might look like, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We do Fakemon content just like this every week, so don't miss out. Also, become a member if you want to show some extra support to the channel. Anyway, let's show off those new evolutions. Starting us off is Mummion, the ghost-type evolution from the Liwika region. If we were to ever get an Egypt-based region, this needs to be a thing. It is by far the best execution of a ghost-type evolution I have ever seen. We also showed off this mon in the very first region review, so go check that out if you haven't. Next up, we have a rock-type evolution from the Mediz region, Marbleon. This one is based on the Ionic columns of Greek architecture, as well as marble statues. This is such a unique take on a rock-type evolution, and it is my personal favorite that I've seen. A flying-type evolution is a tricky one. Many in the past have opted to try and mix in some kind of wings on it. But instead of going in that direction, Tubbs AZ went for a more elemental version of the flying type with his evolution, Floofeon. I love how he kept this mon simple but effective. Using clouds as a base for the flying type works so well, and mixes with the idea of an already floofy Eevee perfectly, and doesn't make the typing feel forced. Next up, we have a few evolutions from the Almera region. Starting us off is Meleon, a fighting type evolution. I love the Street Fighter, Ryu, and Ken vibes it gives off. If an evolution were to ever make it in Smash, this would be it. Next up is the poison type evolution, Toxeon. Turning Eevee's floof into a poison cloud is an incredible way to incorporate the typing. And the skull pattern on its head evokes that feeling of a label you would see on poison in classic cartoons. Lastly from Almera is Sandion, a ground type evolution. I found this evolution to be interesting because instead of trying to directly reference the ground typing itself in its design, it references a ground type Pokemon, Mudsdale. It is also based on a Kimono Girl, which is perfect given the connection between the Kimono Girls of Johto and evolutions. So, a normal type evolution is a bit of a complicated idea, because the entire point of Eevee is that it evolves into fun, differently typed Pokemon, because its DNA is unstable, and therefore doesn't evolve normally. But I have a concept I think would work. This is Eeveeon from the Brassar region. So I think a good way of keeping this mon fun and viable is to make it still have unstable DNA, and give it an ability like Protean or Libero. Or maybe an ability like Multi-type, where its type could be changed depending on the evolutionary stone it's holding, each one corresponding to a different evolution. This would continue the flexibility Eevee offers even though it has evolved. Let me know what you think of this idea. Next up are 2 evolutions by Bad Afra that take on some unique types for an evolution. We will start with the Dragon type, Scaleon. What I appreciate about this one is how well it mixes the mammalian aspects of Eevee and the reference to Salamence in its coloration. And now, for the bug type. Just like I said with the Meowth in our Meowth of every type video, bug type is a tricky thing to mix with a mammal like Eevee, but I think Badafra managed to do it very well with Intoeon. It mixes the fluffiness of a moth with Eevee's floof perfectly. The little aspects Badafra added really make this cohesive, like making its tail look like a bee stinger and the fur on its legs look like grasshopper legs. Lastly, we have Steel type. There are so many takes on this concept, but my favorite has to be Samurion by Solian. This is such a different interpretation on not only a Steel type evolution, but especially one with armor as well. I definitely could see something like this in Legends Arceus, or if we ever got another New Japan region, though that is probably not likely. But that's all for now. Let me know which one was your favorite. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And become a member if you want to show some extra support to the channel. With that, I will see you guys next time. It's spoopy season! Halloween is tomorrow, so to celebrate, why don't we bust some ghosts with a Yamask and Rigus of every type? So Yamask got a regional variant in Gen 8 with the Ghost Ground type Galarian Yamask, in which it changed the item it's holding in its tail from a mask to a chunk of stone. This also gave it a brand new evolution with Rigus. So, those in the Fakemon community thought, what if Yamask held other items with its tail? What types and new evolutions would it get? So let's take a look at them. But before we begin, in the spirit of the season, make sure to spook that like button, stab the subscribe button, and exercise that notification bell. Let's start off with a type combo that just finally made it into the actual games, Ghost Normal. This Yamask is holding a worn out Pokédoll instead of its mask, which causes it to evolve into Rigus. This Yamask is said to be the souls of deceased children who cling to the dolls or toys they owned in life. Rigus use giant dolls to hide in, where they lie in wait to capture their prey and drag them into their maw, never to be seen again. While we're on the topic of deceased children, one we probably shouldn't stay on for long, let's talk about the Steel-type Yamask from my own region, Cornera. It is said to be the spirits of miners' children who got lost in the mine. They carry a pickaxe to try to be helpful to miners even in the afterlife. Corneran Yamask evolves into Rigus. Rigus wants to help the miners as well, but just ends up spooking them instead. Keeping with the spooky origin stories, here is a Poison-type Yamask from Chris Roomba. As you can tell, it's based on current events. This Yamask is said to be the spirit of people who died from demonetized. When it evolves, it becomes Rigus. It now inhabits a box of disposable face masks. It will approach passersby and strap a face covering on them. Some think this is Rigus trying to suffocate people, but it is actually trying to warn them so that they don't share in its untimely fate. So that last Yamask was a bit of a parody, so let's go with another one. Meet this Dragon-type Yamask by Anime Freak 9696. It's a Yamask holding a Dragon Ball! In order to get it to evolve, you must defeat other Yamasks, holding different starred Dragon Balls than your own. But once you do, it becomes Rigus. It will grant a single wish to the trainer who helped it evolve. These two speak to my little weeb heart, and I love them so much. So we've had some fun Yamasks, but how about an epic one? Check out this Rock-type Yamask holding an Old Amber by Shiny Gar. These Yamask are drawn to the spirit inside the Old Amber. Their appearance has changed slightly due to the influence of the spirit inside the Amber. When it evolves, it becomes Rigus. The spirit of the Amber has now manifested itself and essentially fused with the Yamask to become this. It is as vicious as the Pokemon whose spirit inhabited the Amber. Next up, we have this Grass-type Yamask by Gabriel Casado Smeargle. It is holding a Calabash gourd that is said to be able to capture spirits. Long ago, a pirate found a Yamask that had lost its mask, so he trapped it inside the gourd. It then grew to like the gourd and see it as its home, and now carries it around. It evolves into Calabascus. It can use its flute to make a hallucinogenic herbal aroma that has been the cause of many people getting lost for days. For the fairy type, we have this Yamask from Maumastex. It is holding an item called the Arceus' Eye, which is inspired by the Greek evil eye. But the Arceus' Eye has the power to cleanse the Yamask and make it pure. It evolves into Rigus. It is inspired by biblically accurate angels, which are terrifying and totally fit in with this line. Next we have a few by the Aussie artist. First is this bug-type Yamask holding a gold scarab charm. It evolves into Scarabegus, which is also inspired by man-faced beetles. Second is an ice-type Yamask holding a snowball, and I'm sure you can tell what it's going to evolve into. So here is Frostorigus. This has a little bit of the Nightmare Before Christmas vibe to it. Let me know if you'd like me to do some Christmas-themed Pokemon when it comes time. Last from this artist is a water-type Yamask holding an old sunken lock covered in kelp. It evolves into Lockerigus. It is of course inspired by Davy Jones' Locker, which definitely fits in with this line. Now for a few by Devil D-Man. First is this fire-type Yamask, which has traded its old mask in for a Tiki mask. It evolves into Tiki Rigus. Its old mask now returns as an accent on its head. Second is a dark-type Yamask, which is holding a wooden stake. These Yamask actually use this stake to defend themselves against their own evolution. It evolves into this more evil version of Cofagrigus. Little do the Yamask know that the stake is actually what's causing them to evolve into this new form. So, it becomes an evolutionary cycle of cat and mouse. Last by Devil D-Man is this electric-type Yamask holding this mysterious tape. I bet you can see where this is going. After the Yamask watch the tape, they are drawn to the Jubilife TV station, where they evolve into Smararigus. It is rumored that the TV station is covering up some victims claimed by Smararigus. For our last few types, here are a few Yamask by Goomy. First is this Psychic-type Yamask holding a crystal ball. It evolves into Gazerigus. They are both based on fortune tellers. These last two were actually a collaborative effort between Goomy and I. First up is a Flying-type Yamask holding a feather pillow. It evolves into Featherigus. They are based on death crowns. In Appalachian folklore, death crowns, also called angel crowns, are clumps of feathers found in the pillows of people who died in their sleep. Some say it means the person went to heaven. Others see it as a bad omen. For our last Yamask, here's a fighting-type variant holding a boxing glove. The boxing glove causes it to evolve into Bruiserigus. The Yamask's eye marking is based on black eyes, which, you know, are common in boxing. Also, its tail looks like a spring-loaded boxing glove. And Bruiserigus is based on punching bags, but it is also a reference to body bags. Its body is literally in the punching bag, and it is a reference to the exclamation, "He put that dude in a body bag." Can you tell I'm proud of this one? But that's it for this spooky assortment of variants. Which one was your favorite? Make sure to let me know in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. With that, I will see you guys next time. The time has come. We did Meowths, we did Yamasks and Cofagrigus? Cofagrigus? Anyway, it's time for a Regi of every type. We already have a third of the types taken care of with the existing Regis, being Rock, Ice, Steel, Normal, Dragon, and Electric. On the last two of every type videos, I got so many comments asking about types that already exist. Like, where's Steel-type Meowth? What about Ghost-type Yamask? So, if you see a comment like this down below, or in future installments, please help guide these lost souls to the obvious. So each Regi so far, sans Regigigas, has represented some kind of historical time period, or age. Regirock, the Stone Age, Regice, the Ice Age, Registeel, the Bronze Age, Regidrago, the Middle Ages, and Regieleki, the Modern Age. So in order to make a Regi of each type, we're going to kind of have to abandon that concept. Just because not every type is going to fit a period of history. Like, what age is grass going to represent? Leaf age? Anyway,
Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future Of Every Type videos. Let's get started with a few from Meowth decks. First, the Flying type. Kind of an odd one to imagine, but I think Regisky handles it perfectly. It evokes that feeling of looking up to the summit of a mountain and feeling like it almost touches the skies. Regisky may look like solid rock, but it is actually an intangible being made of pure air. You could say Regigigas pulled Regisky out of thin air. Next up on the opposite end of the spectrum is Ground type. Rock and Ground type as elements are often hard to distinguish from one another, especially when it comes to Regis, which are essentially elemental golems of that type. But Regiterra manages to make that distinction well. Making a Regi that looks like layers of soil, clay, and sediment is a great way to separate it from the jagged rocks of Regirock. It honestly looks like Regigigas just cut out a square chunk of earth and said, "Here, you're a Regi now." Lastly from Meowth is the Bug type, Regicomb, which was actually my idea. Obviously, it is based on honeycomb given both in the design and the name, which I think is pretty clever. It also has 4 legs and 2 arms, to reference how insects typically have 6 legs. Also, its legs are bee stingers. Anyhow, let's talk lore. The tale of Regicomb goes like this. Once upon a time, Regigigas was feeling weak and starving. It sequestered itself to a forest in an unknown region. In this forest, there were many Teddiursa, Combee, and Cutiefly, who saw Regigigas and decided to help by gathering up as much honey as possible and feeding it to Regigigas. Having its strength replenished, Regigigas used some of the honey to create a guardian for these Pokemon as thanks. And so, Regicomb was born. In my Meowth of Every Type video, check that out if you missed it, a lot of you expressed disappointment in the fighting type not being represented by Subjectively's Mozzie Meowth. Well, this time around, I reached out to Jack from Subjectively, and he gave me the go-ahead to feature the Regis from the Mazza region. So first off is the grass type, Regiwood. There is so much I enjoy about this design. I love how it has such a different shape from the other Regis, being super tall, cylindrical, and kind of lanky. Its design inspiration of wood carvings and primitive machinery merges so well with the already existing Regis. I can vividly imagine seeing this Regi in a Pokemon movie, maybe in the jungle in some ancient ruins, kind of like in the first movie with the discovery of Mew. I also love its lore and origin story, but we will get to that in a bit. Next up is the fighting type, Regibrute. I love the idea of this being a homunculus, aka a golem of flesh. I think the design definitely manages to capture the feeling of other humanoid fighting type Pokemon, while maintaining its Reginess. Though, all I can think of when I see this design is, my body is Regi. Also, its eyes are shaped like a person flexing, which is hilarious and incredible at the same time. Last from Subjectively is the Fairy type, Regiturnal. Honestly, this might be my favorite design of the whole video. I absolutely adore the use of biblically accurate angels as a design basis for a fairy type. I love it when fairy types are not these cutesy pink and girly mons. Like how the Grimmsnarl line and the Gen 8 box legends changed what a fairy type could be. So this is a huge win in my book. Also, the name is just perfection. The lore behind them is something created Regiturnal. Jack left it open-ended for the viewer, so I like to think it was a combination of Regigigas and Arceus due to its angelic design basis. Maybe Regigigas took some of Arceus' power when creating Regiturnal. Maybe to combat Regidrago or something. Anyway, in turn, Regiturnal created Regibrute, and Regibrute created Regiwood. These represent the creation of humanity, and humanity's creation, which is just an incredible bit of lore to replace the lack of the ages concept in these three. I also saw a comment saying Regibrute created Regiwood as a training dummy, which is just hilarious, and absolutely now my headcanon. Make sure to check out Subjectively's video on these Regis for more information. Next up is the Psychic type. For this, we have Regipsyche from Vroomfish. Yes, it is a brain. Its arms and hands are also eye stalks and eyes. I just found this concept to be super clever. While looking like a brain, it isn't overly grotesque. It's quite sleek and smooth. Oh god, it's a smooth brain, isn't it? Well, this design pleases my smooth brain, so whatever. This Regi was born from the mind of an ancient man who tried to fuse himself with a Pokemon, and is a well of pure psychic power. So much so, it releases this power through lasers shooting out of its eyes. Superman, Cyclops, and Icarus are all quaking right now. Now for the Dark type, we have Regi Dark by Devil D-Man. And my god is it dark. Darkrai, eat your heart out. Regidark looks like it came straight out of Dark Souls or Bloodborne in the best way. How many more times am I going to say dark? From its demonic wings, to the protruding pelvic bone, to the upside down cross formation of its eyes, it screams evil incarnate. A complete antithesis to Regiturnal, which I love. I mean, this thing is so edgy I could probably cut myself if I get too close. But it would probably stab me with those lanky dagger arms first. In my headcanon, this was actually created by Giratina as an emissary of darkness. Also from Devil D-Man, we have the Poison type, Regitoxic. Man, this thing looks more toxic than the Pokemon community if there isn't a national dex. I love this interpretation of poison typing. Just so many poisonous spikes everywhere. And it almost looks strangely aquatic in nature. It gives me huge Toxapex vibes. Continuing in the kind of grim theme we have going on here, for the Ghost type, we have Regighost by Trevenart. According to legend, Regighost was created by Regigigas using the wandering souls of Pokemon that couldn't pass on to the afterlife. It absorbs the souls of those who have lost their way. Although, it's said that Regighost also releases the souls through the nail on its head to another dimension, to help give them a new opportunity. It is believed that the talisman on its face keeps it in harmony and harmless to others. Honestly, this thing is just the perfect Ghost-type Pokemon. It references the stereotypical sheet ghosts, the move Curse, and Zhongxi, also known as Chinese hopping zombies. Yes, that is a thing. Look it up. Last up are the final two elemental types, Water and Fire. Both are by Wally Fakemon. For the Water type, we have Regihydro. This Regi is said to be responsible for all life on the planet, which makes sense given water is needed for life to be sustained on any planet, at least that we know of currently. Regihydro can create torrential rains, rivers, and seas, and the plants on its body provide enormous amounts of oxygen. For the Fire type, we have Regignio. This Regi, once upon a time, reigned as an active volcano that could turn an island into a pool of magma in an instant. It was recently rediscovered buried beneath a vast desert. Its temperature is immeasurable as it melts even the most advanced machinery that gets near it. It's only slightly less heated than the Pokemon community when there isn't a national... Wait, I made this joke already, didn't I? Due to their typing and hidden abilities, Primordial Sea and Desolate Land, these two are believed to have been created millennia ago as a result of the Great Wars between Groudon and Kyogre. But there you go, a Regi for each type. Let me know which one was your favorite in the comments below. Make sure to check out the wonderful artists who made this video possible in the description below. Also, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And with that, I will see you guys next time. Goomy! This little slime dragon is the cutest Pokemon in existence. And that's a fact. Totally not just my opinion. Totally. So why don't we spread the Goomy love by making a Goomy of every type? Hey everybody, Brandon here. So recently in Pokemon Legends Arceus, we were introduced to Hisuian Sliggoo and Hisuian Goodra. I, along with others, became curious as to what a Hisuian Goomy might look like. Some, like the incredible artist Goompy, imagined a bunch of different typings for Goomy, though I don't know why you would possibly have an inclination to do such a thing. But after seeing those amazing variants, it had me feeling inspired to make this video and make a bunch of Goomies of my own. Unlike previous of every type videos, Goomy doesn't actually have any variants. So there will be a whopping 17 new Goomies, because obviously we already have Dragon. Looking at you, comment section. But before we begin this Goomylicious endeavor, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to keep up to date with future videos. Also, I really don't plug this at all, but make sure to go follow me over on Twitter. I'm trying to hit 1K followers by the end of this year, so let's see if we can make that happen. Also, make sure to check out my other socials using the link tree in the description. So about half of these Goomies were done by Goompy, but the other half I commissioned my good friend Kai_FakemonSR for. So we'll start with the ones I did with Kai. Starting us off is the Steel type. This, of course, is going to be Hisuian Goomy. Like I said before, this is kind of one I wish would be real. I understand why it's not, but it's still fun to imagine. So for this one, Kai and I tried to replicate that feeling from Sliggoo and Goodra, of almost having the shell overwhelm the Pokemon. I mean, the concept behind this line and their Colossian counterpart is that the Hisuian line is more reserved in their shell, and the Colossian line has come out of their shell. You can see this in how it becomes more friendly looking and less depressed. Another little design detail is we made the cheeks of Goomy a little more desaturated, more of a greenish gray to match the eyes and dots of Sliggoo, which are also more of a desaturated green. This little detail also matches how the color and vibrancy of the Colossian Goomy line has become more subdued with the Hisuian line. This is another Hisuian variant that's an example of, what did you do to my boy? Next up, here is a rock-type Goomy. This Goomy is based on the Dorona albilinita sea slug. Probably butchered that Latin, but get used to it. We're going to talk about a lot of snails and slugs in this video that don't have common names. The Dorona is a particularly impressive looking sea slug, and definitely caught my eye when researching slugs for these variants. Its serrata, these little spiky parts on its back, reminded me heavily of crystalline structures found in caves, specifically that of quartz and amethyst. So this Goomy is modeled after quartz and amethyst geodes. The combination of Goomy plus Dorona plus geodes just fits the rock type perfectly. This Goomy is more stern and stubborn. They won't be bothered to move unless they're in danger. This is to reflect the hardened and immovable nature of crystals. These Goomy are often mistaken for actual crystals because they sit so still, which leads to them becoming even more stern and stubborn. Speaking of Angie boys, here is a fighting type Goomy. This Goomy is partially based on the fighting conch snail, which has the incredible binomial name of Strombus pugilis. Yes, I know. It's based on a snail, but it doesn't have a shell? Well, the overall design just didn't lend itself to a shell, and slugs are basically just snails without shells anyway. The purple aspects of this design are meant to reference the black eyes and bruises that fighters receive. You know, when they're fighting. It also has a little anger mark that it shares with Primeape. This Goomy uses its antenna? Eyes? What are those things? Anyway, it uses these things to punch. So, yes, all punch moves are available to learn, and it actually makes sense, unlike freaking Wooper. While we're on the topic of ground types, here's this ground type Goomy. Unlike the past few Goomies, which were based on snails or slugs, this Goomy is actually based on a flatworm, specifically the Eurylepta leparda, or the leopard flatworm. The pattern on its back reminded me of sand, so it gave me the idea of a Goomy who could flatten itself out and almost merge with the sand to camouflage itself. Kind of like Sandygast in Palisand. Also, its coloration reminds me of pancakes and syrup, which is just another reason to love this cutie. For another Goomy based on a flatworm, here is a flying type Goomy. This Goomy isn't based on any specific flatworm, but more so the way flatworms look when they swim. I mean, look at this. It's so beautiful and trippy, like a Beatles music video. To me, it almost looks like a magic carpet flying through the air. So that's what inspired this Goomy. Its coloration is meant to look like the sky and clouds. The patterns on its sides are air current, and its antennae... Okay, you know what? I'm gonna look this up. Wait, they're horns? Okay, the horns are meant to look like fluffy clouds. Also, it has a kind of a little air current mustache going on, and you know how I love facial hair. This Goomy likes to zoom through the air without a care in the world. You could say they're living on cloud 9.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Want to see something else that's trippy and beautiful? How about this psychic type Goomy? This Goomy is based on, and I'm gonna try my best here, the Phylodesmium poendimiae slug, which means spun of light. Did I do good? Okay, cool. This psychedelic-looking Goomy's horns and coloration are both inspired by the serrata of the spun of light slug. But like I said, it's meant to look psychedelic, because this Goomy is definitely tripping. This is a reference to the supposed link between psychedelics and extrasensory perception, aka ESP. This Goomy may seem confused, but its horns are actually highly sensitive receivers of psychic energy that it uses to find its way around and defend itself if necessary. Speaking of horns, here is this normal type Goomy. This Goomy is partially inspired by the Triton's trumpet snail, except for its shell is literally a trumpet. Well, not quite a trumpet, but it's kind of a mix of a bunch of different brass instruments. But now its horns are horns. Should be easy to remember that now. This Goomy uses its shell to make incredibly loud noises, rivaling that of a Loudred. The louder the Goomy, the stronger it is. For the dark type, here is this Goomy. It is based on assassin snails and actual assassins. Its horns are of course supposed to look like demonic horns to give off that evil vibe. Pokemon breeders and farmers will use this form of Goomy if they have unwanted pests sneaking into their farm. Let's just say they get the job done. Lastly from Kai and I is this electric type Goomy. It is based on this Super Saiyan looking dude, the Genolus Fuscus. Also, as I'm sure you've noticed, its cheeks and brow line are a reference to Frankenstein's monster, who in and of itself was brought to life using lightning. And for a third reference, back in 2012, scientists from Clarkson University and Ben Gurion University of Negev managed to create a snail-powered battery by collecting small amounts of power over several months by processing the glucose in the snail's blood. We live in a crazy world, man. Jeez. The rest of these Goomies are made by Goompy. To start us off is this incredible water-type Goomy based on the Glaucus atlanticus, or the blue sea dragon. Blue sea dragons are the coolest creatures in nature, and making a Goomy variant based on them works so well. I love the way Goompy incorporated the sea dragon's serrata into a mustache and eyebrows. It reminds me of the wise dragons of Chinese folklore. Next, here is the fire-type Goomy. This one is based on the scaly foot snail, whose natural habitat is hanging around hydrothermal vents, heated by underlying magma, which can reach up to 750 degrees Fahrenheit. That is one hot snail. Don't take that out of context. To complete the starter type trio, here is this grass type Goomy. It is of course based on banana slugs and actual bananas. The banana slug combo is definitely a concept I've wanted to see Game Freak explore. And this is a great example as to why. This concept fits so well onto Goomy. Next up is this bug type Goomy. And its inspiration is a little gross, so consider this your warning. Okay, good? Alright, this Goomy is inspired by the green-banded broadsack, a parasite that hangs out in the snail's eye stalks. Yes, now my eyes hurt too. Speaking of creepy things, how about a ghost type Goomy? While being a ghost, its inspiration is actually not creepy like the last one. This Goomy is inspired by sea angels. Isn't that nice? Aren't they just so beautiful? These last few aren't actually based on snails, slugs, or even flatworms. For the poison type, we have this Goomy. It is based on tar pits and the fossils found within them. I love how Goompy made it look like a caveman with that heavy brow line. Maybe we could see this in a prehistoric Pokemon region. Next, here is the fairy type Goomy. This one's based on bubblegum. I love the little personality it has, trying to pull itself off the ground. I imagine this is a frequent occurrence for this poor Goomy. Its horns being bubbles is so cute and reminds me of space buns, which just makes me love this design more. Last but not least is this ice type Goomy. It is based on a dropped ice cream cone, which is adorable and hilarious. The shell being the cone is ingenious. I also love the personality shift on this one. It being more sleepy looking is clearly a reference to how when your body temperature drops, you become drowsy, like in cases of hypothermia. But that's a Goomy of every type. Let me know which one was your favorite. Also, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Also, go follow me on all my socials. Follow the link tree in the description. With that, I will see you guys next time.
Rotom, a little plasma ghost Pokemon with the power to possess household appliances and other electronics, with each thing Rotom possessing giving it a new secondary type. So let's see what a Rotom of every type might look like. Hey everyone, Brandon here. So as I said before, Rotom has the ability to possess electronics. Sometimes it is used to pull pranks on people, such as its initial forms. Other times it's used to assist them in daily life, like in all the forms introduced after Gen 7. With 6 out of the 18 types being occupied by these Rotom forms, there's room left to wonder what appliances or electronics Rotom would have to possess to get the other 12 types. So to find this out, I asked you guys for help by participating in a contest I hosted in March to celebrate reaching 50,000 subscribers on the channel. We are now at... What? You guys are absolutely wild with the support on this channel. Thank you, truly, from the bottom of my heart. It really means the world to me. Anyway, the community went so hard for this contest, and I got so many more submissions than I was expecting. I was initially just gonna have one winner for each type, but you guys surprised me with so many fun and amazing concepts that I couldn't help but feature a bunch of different forms for each type. So if you're excited to see a bunch of fun Rotom forms, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you like the concept of different Pokemon of every type, there's a playlist of past of every type videos you can check out through this card or through the link in the description. Anyway, let's get into some Rotom forms. Take it away, Cartoon Me. Starting us off is the Psychic type. For this one, most of you seem to have the same idea. Rotom possessing a TV, to reference subliminal messaging in media, as well as us being hypnotized by our televisions, being stuck watching them like some kind of hypnotized zombie. These 3 entries illustrate this concept perfectly, with this one by I'm Solart actually using its powers to soothe children and adults alike. One other concept I found really fun is this form of Rotom that has possessed a calculator, getting across the whole idea of the psychic typing being associated with intelligence. For the normal type, there were a couple concepts that caught my eye, particularly these 2 which are based on 2 different kinds of speakers. One a CD player, and the other a Bluetooth speaker, both playing into the normal type's affinity for sound-based Pokemon and moves. Another concept that I really enjoyed is this Rotom that has possessed a copy machine, which refers to the normal type having Pokemon that can copy others, such as Ditto or Smeargle. For the rock type, we have these forms of Rotom that have possessed a jackhammer. I love this idea. I can imagine these forms just wreaking havoc on the sidewalks of cities. Another concept for the rock type that I really enjoyed was this form of Rotom that has possessed a rock salt lamp. I find this hilarious because I've always had one of these in my home, and I feel like there's at least one in every home nowadays. So you could even call this a household appliance. Also, I wanted to give a quick shout out to this form, a Rotom electric guitar, that is electric rock type. Great pun. Though I don't usually do this for of every type videos, I decided to include the pure electric typing for a Rotom form. Because in this situation, I feel like there would be a Rotom form for it, and these 2 concepts are exactly what I thought of. These Rotom have possessed generators. I really like the idea of these Rotom coming to the rescue during a power outage. I could even see an episode of the anime where this form of Rotom comes to the rescue when, ironically, an electric type gym's power goes out. For the ground type, there are these 2 forms in which a Rotom has possessed a shop vacuum, or shop vac for short, with the ground typing coming from shop vacs picking up huge amounts of dirt and dust off the floor. I imagine these Rotom would take all the stuff they've sucked up and use it for a sand attack or sand tomb. For the dark type, there were a couple very different concepts that I liked. One was this one by Double Cheeseburger, in which Rotom has possessed an old rotary phone, so it can make prank calls without having to worry about caller ID. The other is a Rotom that has possessed an old PC by Splat the Crystal. It has become a glitch in this PC and corrupted it. You can even see it has a missing no for a hand, which could be a Pokemon whose data was corrupted because of this Rotom form. Spooky. For the Steel type, it seems the general consensus was on Rotom possessing some form of saw. Here are some forms in which a Rotom has possessed a chainsaw and another that has possessed a table saw. I especially love how the table saw one has its hand as a guide for the saw blade. There were also 2 other concepts for Steel type I really enjoyed. There's this one by Sidonia Arts that has Rotom possessing an iron, which is just a hilarious pun I couldn't resist featuring. The other is this toaster form by Sketchy Sketchbook. This Rotom can shoot toast-shaped flash cannons, which is also super hilarious. For the poison type, we have these 2 Rotom forms that are possessed blenders. The blender being used for the poison type made a lot of sense to me. I just imagine Rotom being like one of those challenge videos where they're just grabbing a bunch of random ingredients, throwing them into a blender and making the world's worst smoothie. Babe, are you okay? You've hardly touched your strawberry, horseradish, soy sauce, mustard smoothie. These last few types were all over the place when it came to what Rotom would possess. So let's begin with the type that was the most scattered as far as forms, the fairy type. For these next few, I'm just going to list a bunch of forms that I found fun and why. First up, we have this form, which is a Rotom that has possessed an electric toothbrush. I love the play on the tooth fairy being why it has the fairy typing. I also picture it having bubblegum toothpaste on the bristles. Next, we have this camera Rotom. It can use Dazzling Gleam, and I imagine it probably uses Flash too, which I love. After that, we have this form of Rotom that has possessed fairy lights. I love the pun of using the name to explain the typing. On top of that, fairy is ostensibly the light type, so the typing works as a double pun for both parts of the name, fairy lights. Speaking of lights, we have this Rotom that has possessed a nightlight, once again playing into the fairy typing acting as the light type. After that, we have this form of Rotom that has possessed a Tamagotchi. I just really love the pun of Rotamagotchi for this one. For yet another form, we have this Rotom possessing an artificial Christmas tree, which exudes the fairy typing by giving us some holiday cheer. Lastly, for the fairy type, we have these 3 forms based on oil diffusers and a smoke machine. I really like the idea of Rotom having the fairy typing for the same reason as Aromatisse, giving off a pleasant and calming scent that could even put you to sleep. The bug type, like in most of every type videos, is a really hard one to pin down design elements for. There were a few that I liked in particular, such as this form in which a Rotom has possessed a sewing machine. I love how this plays on the idea of spider silk to justify the bug typing. Another one is this Rotom that has possessed a buzz saw, which is just a great pun. There's also these two forms which are more great puns. They made Rotom possess a beetle. I found this utterly hilarious in the best way. For the fighting type, we have a few options. A couple that I really thought fit were Rotom possessing some form of video game technology, like these two forms. Another one I found very clever design-wise was this form by Splat the Crystal, in which Rotom has possessed an electric car jack. And look, the car jack looks like Rotom is flexing its muscles. Adorable. Another concept was this one by Sketchy Sketchbook that is a treadmill Rotom. I love the idea of exercise being associated with the fighting type, so this one was especially appealing to me. Last but not least is the dragon type. Though what Rotom possessed was varied, there was a common theme amongst most of the dragon type entries. Rotom possessing something big, like a satellite, or a helicopter, or train, or plane, oh my! I really love the idea of the dragon typing being attributed to a large, intimidating presence like these forms. For some smaller forms, we have this Rotom Leaf Blower by Sergeant Mako, and a Mouse Rotom by KKO Draws. I find the way they both use Rotom's arms as wings really cool. And I love how the mouse is the opposite idea of the other Rotom forms, in that sometimes the biggest strengths come in the smallest packages. And that is all the Rotom forms for this video. Let me know which one was your favorite. And a huge thank you to everyone who participated in this contest. If you enjoyed the contest, make sure to let me know if you'd like to see more in the future. Also, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to keep up to date with future videos. And with that, I will see you guys next time. Fossil Pokemon. Fun, epic, historic creatures revived from their ancient slumber, each based on a different prehistoric creature in real life. So let's see what a fossil Pokemon of each type might look like. Hey everyone, Brandon here. The fossils are some of the most fun and unique Pokemon in the franchise, even receiving their own exhibits in actual museums in Japan that explore their real-life counterparts. Ah! Excavator Pikachu is so cute! With 8 of the 18 types covered by previous fossil Pokemon, today I wanted to explore what the other 10 types could look like and what prehistoric creatures might represent them. If you're excited to see a fossil of each type, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to keep up to date with future videos. So before we get into the fossils, I wanted to give some quick disclaimers. I will not be giving the Galar fossils unmixed forms in this video. The Zolt part of the fossils is our first electric fossil Pokemon, but I will only be discussing fossil Pokemon with the primary rock typing, like all the fossils before Galar. So there will be no primary ice-type fossils or fossils missing that rock typing, like my own in Cornera. This leaves us with 10 types to fill, as we already have Aerodactyl and Archeops for flying, the Kabutops, Amistar, and Caracosta lines for water, the Credillia line for grass, the Armaldo line for bug, the Bastiodon line for steel, the Tyrantrum line for dragon, the Aurorus line for ice, and we even have the pure rock type with the Rampardos line. There, no one can say I missed a type now. Anyway, let's talk about some fossils. To start us off, we have the electric type. I was tempted to just try to find a completed form of the Zolt part of the fossils, but then I would have had to do the rest, and that's not what this video is about. But I have a good substitute for this with Zaptor and Velocivolt from TubsAZ on Instagram. They are both based on raptors, with Velocivolt being based on the Utah raptor specifically. Zaptor can channel electricity through its feathers. When they run, they leave an electrically charged path in their wake. They can achieve breakneck speeds by channeling their electricity through their legs. And Velocivolt hunts in small groups to take down large prey. They can use their claw to send electric impulses into their prey. Their tail also acts as a lightning rod during thunderstorms. This may not have been intentional, but these two give me huge Doc Brown energy from Back to the Future. I can just hear them saying, "Generate the 1.21 gigawatts of electricity." 1.21 gigawatts! Next, we have some more by TubsAZ for the fairy type. Meet Hatterena and Parasong. Hatterena is based on a type of hadrosaur named the Corythosaurus, and ocarinas. Using their unique crest, Hatterena can make a variety of sounds by blowing air through it. Their vocalizations can be calming and soothe their enemies. Parasong is based on parasaurs, flutes, and musicians. You can even see it has its finest orchestra attire on. With a much more defined crest than Hatterena, Parasong is capable of creating intricate music that is unique to each family grouping. For the last one by TubsAZ, we have some fighting type fossil Pokemon. Here is Triceratops.
This cutie is based on axes and the ever-iconic Triceratops. Triceratops' axe-like horn was initially believed to be some kind of ancient tool, but upon further study, Triceratops was discovered and revived. They often stay in large herds with other Triceratops and their evolutions, Tomatops. Tomatops is based on the Pseudoceratops and axes. Tomatops are one of the few Pokemon that can actually create rudimentary structures by making walls out of the trees they fell. They can cut down trees with ease using their axe-like nose. Timber! Get it? Next up, we have a couple fossils from Mycomon regions on Instagram. First, we have the fire type. For this, we will start with Brazar, which is based on a Dimetrodon. Its name comes from the Egyptian word brazier, meaning flame or heat, and is also a form of fire pit or container. Brazar stores sunlight in its dorsal sail that can generate scorching hot flames. I can imagine cuddling up with my Brazar next to a fire it created. Cute and practical. Brazar evolves into Spinosaur, which is of course based on the Spinosaurus. Spinosaur like to take a dip in lava pools to store heat in their large dorsal sails. Both Brazar and Spinosaur's dorsal fins are meant to resemble sundials, and they both can use them like solar panels. But rather than creating energy, they create intense flames. Next from Michael, we have the Psychic type, which is represented by Sorabrum and Mbembrane, which are both inspired by the Brontosaurus and the Mokele Mbembe, a spiritual being with a striking resemblance to the Brontosaurus. They are both based on seers and crystal balls, with Mbembrane also bearing a resemblance to wise old wizards like Merlin or Gandalf. Sorabrum can tell the future of anyone it touches, which leads to it becoming aloof, because it knows too much. Mbembrane uses its powers of future and past sight to gain infinite wisdom that it can use in combat. For the normal type, we have Rockapi and Troglolith by Elite4 on Instagram, which are based on the evolution of humans from apes and our ancestors such as
Neanderthals.
What is more fitting for the normal type than the most normal thing of all? Us. These Pokemon are considered to be the missing link between humans and Pokemon. As you can see, they have major gender differences, which actually affect more than just their appearance. It also changes their behavior. Male and female Troglolith will raise their young in very different ways. Male Troglolith are aggressive and keen on challenging Pokemon and other Troglolith to battles, while the female Troglolith like to gather berries and bond with other Pokemon species. Those Troglolith that used both techniques adapted better and survived longer. I also love how Rockapi's name comes from the lullaby Rockabye Baby. Very clever wordplay. For the ground type, we have some Pokemon that may look a bit familiar from the Helenos region on Instagram. Here are Cetadile and Alterodile. They are the ancestors to the Crocodile line and are based on the Caprosuchus, also named the Boar Crocodile. Alterodile's name comes from all-terrain, to refer to its title as the Land Croc Pokemon, and that it is a crocodile, which usually are more of a strong swimmer, but Alterodile also has a land advantage given its long legs, which can be used to sprint, and its rock and ground typing. A double entendre name. I love it. For the poison type, we have Elegoo and Tartusk by Subjectively here on YouTube. These two are based on mammoths and how they could be well preserved in tar pits, such as the La Brea tar pits. When scientists wanted to resurrect these Pokemon, they used a bit of fur that had been discovered in a tar pit. As such, when they were resurrected, their DNA spliced with that of the mineral composition of the tar, leading to these new forms. These two are giving me Jeff Goldblum in The Fly energy. But obviously, this means these forms are very different from how their ancestors looked and behaved, with Tartusk even having half its usual body mass replaced with tar. These Pokemon can take advantage of their new sticky forms and produce toxic fumes and sticky goo that can subdue even the strongest opponents. That last entry was pretty dark, so let's talk about the dark type. For this, we have Cubble and Mount Tiger from the Wesco region on Instagram, which we recently did a region review on, so check that out if you missed it. These Pokemon are both inspired by the ever-famous saber-toothed tiger. Ugh, my Power Rangers tingle is on full blast right now. Okay, I have to say it, saber-toothed tiger! Cubble is a very crafty little Pokemon that will pounce at any opportunity that presents them with food. Mount Tiger is a fairly aggressive Pokemon that was the apex predator of its time. Its stone headpiece acting as a demarcation of its pride and aggressiveness. The more scars on its headpiece, the more aggressive it is. This Pokemon line was thought to have existed closer to modern times than most fossil Pokemon. Finally, we have the Ghost type. To represent this, we will start with Sorotomb by Veluart over on Instagram. This little guy is inspired by the mighty Stegosaurus and tombstones. No, not the pizza. Great, now I'm hungry. Rotom has the unnerving ability to drain the life force from Pokemon around it. It is heavily debated among scientists whether this is in fact its original form. Rotom evolves into Stegoleum, which goes from being inspired by tombstones to being inspired by the entire graveyard. Stegoleum can shoot the plates on its back like missiles. Studies suggest it might have been part grass type before the extinction of its species. Talk about a grim ending, am I right? Anyway, that's a fossil Pokemon for each type. Make sure to let me know which one was your favorite. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to keep up to date with future videos. Thanks so much for watching, and with that, I will see you guys next time. Oricorio, a Pokemon with the ability to change its form through the use of differently colored nectars, with each form having a unique type and dance style associated with it. So let's take a look at what an Oricorio of every type might look like. Hey everyone, Brandon here. Today we are taking a look at Oricorio. This dance-themed avian has been one of the more requested Pokemon for me to do an of every type video on. Oricorio's multiple types being associated with different dance styles really intrigued me. There are so many possibilities as to what dance style could be associated with what type. I made a lot of my own original Oricorios for this video, but there are some that I included from other artists because I just felt they made too much sense. With the existing forms of Oricorio being Fire, Electric, Psychic, and Ghost, that leaves 14 types for us to fill. And for this one, I will be doing the pure flying type, as it makes sense in this context. Anyway, let's get to it. Starting us off is the ground type. After giving your Oricorio an orange nectar, it becomes this form by Tubbs AZ. It's based on square dancing. The ground type being associated with a cowboy harkens back to the dusty deserts of the Old West, so this combo works really well together. Honestly, this form just makes way too much sense. If we ever get a Western US-based region, this absolutely needs to be real. This Oricorio causes minor seismic activity when it dances. It is one of the more rowdy forms of Oricorio, often trying to bring others in to dance with it. Next up, we have the fairy type. After giving your Oricorio a white nectar, it would become this form by Pokemachi. This form is based on ballet dancers and the famous ballet Swan Lake. The fairy type and ballet, could there be a better matchup? The artistry of ballet really evokes that elegance, sprightliness, and splendor of the fairy type. This form of Oricorio loves to dance around on the tips of its talons with grace, poise, and swiftness. It uses devastating pirouettes to dispatch its foes. For the fighting type, after giving your Oricorio a magenta nectar, you would get this form by Ruan Raphael Art. This form is based on funk dances, specifically the Boogaloo. Yes, this is Oricorio 2 Electric Boogaloo. Or should I say Fighting Boogaloo? The artist also said they were inspired by the music video Show das Ponderosas by the artist Anita. This form of Oricorio uses energetic dance moves to confuse its opponents. When the opponent lets their guard down, it will follow up with attacks such as high jump kick and wing attack. Honestly, the fighting type could work with many different dance styles, but I thought this funk form fit best. For the normal type, after giving your Oricorio a beige nectar, it would become this form by Kai Fakemon SR. This form is based on the Samba dance style. These are the most common form of Oricorio, and most believe it to be its original form. These Oricorio will often reunite in groups where they dance in circles, spinning and singing, which has inspired people to make their own celebratory festival whenever these Pokemon reunite. If you've made it this far into the video, I'm sure you'd like the rest of the content on this channel, so make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to keep up to date with future videos. So from here on, all these Oricorio will be ones that I came up with. I worked with the incredible Kai Fakemon SR to bring these to life, so let's get into them. First up, we have the Ice type. After giving Oricorio an Arctic Blue nectar, you would get this form of Oricorio. This form is based on the disco dance style. The reason why I picked disco for the Ice type is the song Do the Funky Penguin by Rufus Thomas and the dance move associated with it. As well as I kind of associate the disco ball with an igloo, both having that kind of rectangular pattern. I don't know, is that just me? Also, it is a bit of a stretch, but you can kind of fit ice into the word disco, like disco. Is that too big of a stretch? Its appearance is of course based on the iconic disco movie Saturday Night Fever, and John Travolta's character in it, Tony Manero. This Oricorio uses its super cool dance moves to freeze its opponents in their tracks. Get it? Super cool. Next, we have the Grass type. After giving Oricorio a green nectar, you would receive this form of Oricorio. This one is based on Irish step dancing. Commonly known depictions of this dance style are the River Dance and Lord of the Dance. The reason I chose this style for the Grass type is because of the association between the color green and Ireland. with imagery such as leprechauns, shamrocks, the sprawling fields of lush grass that used to surround me, Goff. Sorry, I got a little lost in my Irish roots there. Anyway, as you can see, this Oricorio has the classic attire of an Irish step dancer, as well as the poofy hair and hands, or I guess wings, on its hips. This Oricorio can help plants grow by dancing before them. It is said that a team of this Oricorio once danced across an entire region and filled it with flora. For the bug type, after giving Oricorio a olive nectar, you would get this form of Oricorio. Okay guys, I'm actually really proud of the dance style behind this one. This form is based on, wait for it, the jitterbug. Clever, right? The jitterbug is a type of swing dancing that was popular in the late 1930s and early 1940s. The design of this form is based on the attire of swing dancers of that time. We also gave it these two little curly antenna-like feathers that are not only a way of displaying the bug typing, but are also a reference to the curly hairstyles that were popular in the 1930s. As I have said in the past, the bug typing is always hard to apply to non-bug Pokemon, but I am extremely proud of how this one came out, and the fact that I managed to slip a pun in there. This form of Oricorio likes to buzz around, energetically dancing from place to place with a look of ease and freedom. Next up, we have the water type. For this type, I wanted to do something very flowy with liquidy movements, so I decided to go with belly dancing. The hip movements, belly rolling, and movement of the fabric of the hip scarves used in this style of dance very much give off that vibe I was thinking of. So when you give your Oricorio a blue nectar, you get this form of Oricorio. I decided to feature the hip scarf prominently in this design because it wouldn't exactly be easy to show off the other aspects of belly dancing while using Oricorio as a base. This Oricorio uses its flowy movements to calm and enchant its foes into a subdued state. For the dark type, when you give Oricorio a black nectar, it becomes this form. This form of Oricorio is based on rave dancing, aka raving. It is also based on the famous meme of the cyber goth dance party. I thought that the dark type would suit this very well, as goths are seen as a very dark, all-black kind of style, but cyber goths mix in that pop of color, and I thought it would be a unique take on a dark type Oricorio. You can see the cyber goth and rave inspiration in its coloration. We gave it these bright feathers that kind of act like glow sticks. Also, we of course had to sneak in some devil horns in there, as dark type is the evil type in Japan. Also, we noticed this after completing it, but it's TikTok colored, so I guess there's another dance style in there for you. This form of Oricorio only comes out at night. It will use its brightly colored feathers to reflect the moonlight and stun their prey. Next up is the poison type. When giving Oricorio a violet nectar, and no, there is not a scarlet nectar, you will receive this form of Oricorio. It is based on punk dancing and mosh pits. The reason I picked this for the poison type rather than the dark type was I thought that the poison type could reflect the greens and purples that are often associated with the punk and even grunge styles. As you can see, this Oricorio has bright green mohawk-like feathers and is giving us the sign of the horns. I also added the inspiration of the Pitohui in there. It is one of the only poisonous birds in the world due to a certain type of beetle in its diet. This form of Oricorio seems to move randomly with no real pattern. They will bash themselves into opponents, trying to rub off some of their toxic feathers up against them in hopes they'll get poisoned. For the rock type, once you give Oricorio a brown nectar, you would get this form of Oricorio. This form is based on the hip hop and pop dance styles, but specifically the pop and lock style. The locking part of this dance, for me, kind of evokes the poses you could see of statues. But the most fun part to me is if you put the word locking into katakana, you would get rocking. So I just had to do the rock type for this style. We gave it a little feather hat and these kind of loose overalls because we wanted to evoke that 90s style. I was also inspired by the video The Evolution of Hip Hop with Will Smith and Jimmy Fallon. This form of Oricorio will be dancing and then lock into one position, sometimes for hours. Some say this was developed as a defense mechanism against predators. Others think it's just trying to look cool. Next up is the pure flying type. When giving Oricorio a sky blue nectar, you would get this form of Oricorio. This form of Oricorio is inspired by aerial dancing, made famous by acts such as the Cirque du Soleil. This just had to be the pure flying type dance style. I mean, it's in the name, aerial dancing. While sort of obvious, I really do like how this form turned out. We tried to make the wings and tail emulate the aerial silks often used in this style of dance. It really gives off the flowing, effortless, gravity-defying feeling that aerial dancing does. It kind of gives you the question of, is this thing flying or is it just hovering using its tail? The world may never know. Oricorio in this form spend most of their time dancing in the air, only landing to rest or eat. Now for the steel type. When giving your Oricorio a Silver Nectar, you will receive this form. It is based on tap dancing. This was another one that just felt obvious to me. The style of this one was trying to replicate that old-timey top hat and cane, hello my baby, hello my honey, hello my ragtime gal type of performance. The whole grayscale coloration was meant to reference old black and white movie musicals that had these kinds of performances in them. We even gave it metal talons on its feet that it can tap with. The very definition of Metal Claw. This Oricorio form uses its metal talons to tap on the ground in specific patterns to attract mates. The more vigorous and complex the tapping, the more likely it is to find a partner. Giggity. Last but not least, we have the Dragon type. The Dragon type was very hard to pick for. I mean, when I think dragons and dances, I of course think the Pokemon move, the Dancing Dragon from Avatar: The Last Airbender, and the George R.R. Martin book. But what I ultimately decided on is a dance style that has a huge presence like a dragon would. A style that is currently taking over our world, K-pop. So after giving your Oricorio an Indigo Nectar, it would become this form of Oricorio. While also inspired by idols and idol groups found in Korea and Japan in general, I really drew inspiration from BTS on this one. Honestly, while I'm not a K-pop stan, I really do enjoy BTS's music, and they do have a massive presence around the world right now. We used the purple coloration and sharper fang and claw-like angles in the feathers to help evoke that dragon typing, while still trying to maintain that K-pop style with the head feathers, tail, and clothes. I'm actually very proud of how this one turned out, and for me it definitely fits the dragon type. This form of Oricorio uses a vicious yet subdued style of dance to intimidate its enemies, often leading to its opponents actually becoming infatuated with it. And that's an Oricorio of every type. Let me know what you think and which one was your favorite. In all honesty, this was probably my favorite one to do thus far, and really pushed me creatively, so I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Thanks so much for watching, and with that, I will see you guys next time. Pikaclones. Cute little electric-type rodents that are designed to replicate Pikachu. We have had one every single generation since Gen 3, or Gen 2 if you count Pichu. Since Gen 5 though, Pikaclones have begun getting secondary types. Except Pommy, for some reason. So let's find out what a Pikaclone of every type might look like. Hey everyone, Brandon here. So, Pikaclones. Personally, I love them, especially Dedenne and Togedemaru. As I said in the intro, there are currently... get it? Currently? Anyway, half the Pikaclones have a secondary type. Flying with Emolga, Fairy with Dedenne, Steel with Togedemaru, and Dark with Morpeko. And of course, pure electric type is covered by all the other Pikaclones. That leaves 13 types for us to fill, so let's get to work. Let's begin with some Pikaclones by my good friend Michael, aka Michael Ryan on YouTube and Mikemon Regions over on Instagram. Michael has made 2 Fakemon regions and thus 2 Pikaclones. Starting us off is the Ice type. And for that we have Shakaru from Michael's Fearin region. This long boy is based on the Stoat. While the Stoat is not a rodent, it is a mustelid, which are fairly similar to rodents in appearance. There will be more mustelids and other animals similar to rodents for other Pikaclones in this video, so just be prepared for that. Shakaru's Ice-type inspiration can be pretty clearly seen from the Stoat's winter coat and general habitat. Its name comes from Shaku and Chiru. These words are an example of a Japanese concept called gairaigo, or loan word, where a foreign word will just be translated using katakana. For example, milk is miruku, so Shaku is shock and Chiru is chill. Didn't think you'd be getting a Japanese lesson when you opened this video, did you? Shakaru are often found burrowing in Fearin snowy tundra, and they will hunt at night by using electricity stored in their cheeks to find and stun their prey. Next is the Poison type. For this we have Pikeboru from Michael's Liwika region. This spiky little dude is based on the Lowland Streaked Tenrek, and by god do they look like a real-life Pikaclone. This is one of those animals you just look at and think, yep, that was destined to be a Pokemon. The poison typing comes from its other inspiration of poison-tipped arrows, with Pikeboru able to shoot out its quills like said arrows. Pikeboru's name is another example of gairaigo, in which it comes from Supaiki, meaning spiky, and Boruto, meaning bolt. Pikeboru stores electricity in its cheeks and poison in its quills, which make it particularly difficult to cuddle with. For the rock type, we have Sagald from Ada's Fakemon. That's a round little guy if I've ever seen one. Sagald is based on gold and the collared Pika, also known as the rock rock rabbit. The gold part of its inspiration comes from the fact that gold is a great conductor of electricity. Its name comes from Naki Usagi, which is the Japanese word for Pika, Au, which is the symbol for gold on the periodic table of elements, and gold. Sagald are very elusive and hard to find, with them being on high alert due to their great hearing and vision. They will flee at the first sign of danger. Due to their appearance, they are easily mistaken for real gold. It is said that if you hit Sagald while mining, that you are cursed to find only fool's gold forevermore. Next up is the ground type. For this, we have Girasuna by Masissos region. It is based on ground squirrels and luchadors. Its name comes from Jirisu, which is ground squirrel in Japanese, and Suna, which means sand. Girasuna can communicate with others by sending energy into the earth with its tail, which it can also use as a means of digging. That's one handy tool. Or I guess I should say that's one handy tail. Get it? Because it's shaped like a hand? Haha. For the normal type, we have my own Pikaclone from Cornera, Denkibi. It is based on field mice and speaker systems, playing into the whole idea of normal types having sound-based moves and designs like the X-Bloud line. Its name comes from Chibi and Denki. OMG, like Denki Karmanari from My Hero Academia? No, like Denki, as in the Japanese word for electricity or light. Where do you think he gets his name from? Looking at you, comment section. Denkibi can use its impressive ears to detect sounds from miles away. Now, for the water type, we have Ampibera by Costadex. Its name is a mixture of ampere, the base unit for an electrical current, and capybara, which is what it's inspired by. A capybara is a large semi-aquatic rodent native to South America. The semi-aquatic nature of this rodent is what inspired Ampibara's water typing. Ampibara can turn the force of a river current into electrical energy that it stores in its cheeks. Most of the time, you can just find them lounging around and swimming peacefully. For the grass type, we have Hadashiku from Apofakemon. Hadashiku is based on voles and gramineae plants, which is the family that includes wheat. Hadashiku creates pollen from its tail that can cause you to sneeze, but also causes little electric shocks. It is actually allergic to its own pollen, so it makes itself sneeze and spreads the pollen around even more. Hadashiku's name comes from Hatanezumi, meaning vole, and shiku-shiku, the Japanese onomatopoeia for sneezing. Next is the fire type, and representing this is Quokenki from Fakemans. Quokenki is based on the quokka, which is a marsupial found off the coast of Western Australia. They are incredibly photogenic, and they aren't really scared of humans, so people love taking selfies with them. Quokenki's name comes from quokka, duh, and Denki. OMG, like Denki coming up! While Quokenki's cheeks store electricity, the pouch on its belly stores sunlight and turns it into energy, making it incredibly happy and pleasant to be around. If you've made it this far into the video, chances are you like what you're watching, so make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to help support this channel and keep up to date with future videos. For the next two, we have a couple by Tubbs AZ. First, for the psychic type, we have Mogurai. Its name comes from Harimogura and Rai. Harimogura is the Japanese word for echidna, which serves as Mogurai's main inspiration. Its secondary inspiration is electric receptors. Mogurai has poor eyesight, so it uses its highly receptive nose and quills to detect even the slightest movement. It can also use its quills to deliver powerful shocks when threatened. The basis of Mogurai's psychic typing is its extrasensory perception of things. Next up is the ghost type, and be prepared to be a bit spooked by this one, guys, because here is Chumera. Chumera is a hodgepodge of all the Pikaclones stitched together. It has the tail of Pachirisu, the face and ears of Dedenne, the cheek pouch of Minun, and the ear of Plusle and Minun stitched together, the chest of Morpeko, the wings of Emolga, and the belly and feet of Togedemaru. No one knows how it came to be or where it came from, only that it's as rare as it is terrifying. For the bug type, we have Marmota by An Artist Astray. It is based on the Himalayan marmot. But Brandon, I hear you say, what does a marmot have to do with bugs? Well, my fine uninformed friend, way back in 430 BC, the Greek historian and geographer Herodotus wrote in his book Histories of a particular creature called the gold-digging ant that lives around the Himalayas. Herodotus described them as fox-sized furry ants that would dig up gold dust while creating their mounds and tunnels. Skip forward to 1964, and French explorer Michel Payssel discovers that the Himalayan marmot found in the Deosai Plateau may have been what Herodotus was referring to, as the marmots dig their burrows in the plateau's soil, which is rich in gold dust. So there you have it, a marmot mixed with an ant based on an eons-old myth. Marmota's name comes from the genus Marmota and Myrmikis, which means ant in Greek, playing into the myth's Greek origins. Also, you could squeeze Mata in there, as in the Japanese Osaka dialect, it means done by mistake, just like how Herodotus was mistaken about the gold-digging ants. Marmota live in colonies underground and can use their antennae to find buried treasures such as precious minerals and gold. Next up, we have one that was a bit of a challenge to create, the Dragon type. For this, we have Kirigao. Kirigao is based on the Mighty Mongoose and the Rami Drehu. The Rami Drehu is of Cantabrian myth and is a green weasel-like creature with the snout and tusks of a boar. They have a long, snake-like body and a strong desire for gold. What else can have a slender, snake-like body and love gold? Dragons! The reason I picked the mongoose as an additional inspiration is that some species of mongoose are very similar to weasels. But also, mongoose are famous for fighting snakes. Many dragons are snake-like, and dragon is weak against dragon, so it made sense to me. Kirigo is often found in old abandoned castles or deep in caves, hoarding mounds of shiny treasures. It is said that if you can find and catch one, you will earn its fortune. Kirigo's name comes from kira kira, the Japanese onomatopoeia for sparkling, like Kirigo's sparkling treasure, rai meaning thunder, and gao, which is the onomatopoeia for roaring. Last but certainly not least, for the fighting type, we have none other than Gerbolt from True Green 7's Asone region. Gerbolt is based on the Jerboa and superheroes. A Jerboa is a desert rodent found in North Africa and the Middle East with long legs that it can use to move around similar to a kangaroo, and has these adorable giant ears and cute button eyes. Perfect for a Pikaclone. Gerbolt doesn't just look like a superhero, but acts like one as well. It will do its best to save others and fight evildoers, though it's all in an effort to become more popular. Gerbolt loves the attention and waits until it can make a perfect grand entrance, even sometimes to the detriment of those it's trying to save. It can jump 100 feet in the air and use its cape-like fur to slow its fall. It can also use its tail like a grappling hook. If it wasn't obvious, its name comes from Jerboa and Bolt. And that's a Pikaclone of every type. Let me know what you think and which one was your favorite. If you liked the video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to help support this channel and keep up to date with future videos. A huge thank you to all the amazing creators that let me show off their work. Make sure to check them out in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching, and with that, I will see you guys next time. This adorable little meme icon recently got a poison type regional variant. So let's see what a Wooper of every type might look like. Hey everyone, Brandon here. So on August 3rd, 2022, the internet was introduced to the incredible Paldean Wooper. And on that day, everything changed. So that led me to creating 16 more Woopers to fill the remaining types. We have Water Ground with the original Wooper, and then Poison Ground with Paldean Wooper, so all these Woopers will have the secondary ground typing as well. I worked with these two incredible artists to bring these variants to life, so make sure to check them out in the description. Now let's get to some Woopers, shall we? Starting us off is the Fairy type. One very specific Wooper came to mind when I thought of a Fairy type Wooper, the special heart-marked Wooper owned by Alicia in the anime. Hearts and love are great aspects that could be incorporated into a Fairy type, so I dug a little deeper for inspirations and found the Leucistic Axolotl. It is light and dark pink in coloration, which ties perfectly into the hearts and love theme I had in mind. So put them together and you get this Wooper. Like Paldean Wooper, I tried to make it so the same 4 things changed on each of these variants. The color, its mouth shape, the pattern on its chest/stomach, and Wooper's gills. Yes, those things on the side of the heads of axolotls and larval salamanders are actually external gills, which are what the little protrusions on Wooper's head are meant to emulate. Anyway, the gills and pattern on the chest have been changed to love hearts, not biological hearts, because that would be really terrifying. I imagine the heart Wooper Alicia owned was an ancestor to this Wooper and was essentially the first to develop the heart gene. This Wooper developed the fairy typing through domestication. Domesticated Wooper with the heart gene became a highly desirable commodity. So more Wooper were bred to have it, which eventually led to other parts of its biology changing, such as its gills and type. If the colors of the hearts on this Wooper's head and chest are brighter, it means it's very happy and feels loved. But if not, the hearts will begin to turn dark purple and can even break. Next up, we have the fighting type. This one was a bit tough, because how do you make a fighting type that has no arms? Literally every fighting type has arms of some kind. I mean, Wooper having no arms didn't stop Game Freak from letting it learn Ice Punch, so I wasn't gonna let this stop me. But then I came across this fantastic artwork by Utagawa Kuniyoshi called Samurai Fighting Giant Salamander. This ukiyo-e style painting inspired me and made me think, why not just mix them? Which led to the creation of this Wooper. The gills of this Wooper are meant to emulate a samurai's helmet, specifically the fukugaeshi and the shikoro, which protect the face and the head of the samurai. The pattern on its chest is meant to replicate the cuirass or do of a samurai armor, which typically have some sort of lined pattern on the chest. This Wooper has a strong sense of justice and courage. It will defend itself and others without wavering. It always acts with honor, honesty, and politeness to every Pokemon it meets. Trainers who use this Pokemon are said to be as powerful as they are loyal. Next is the normal type. So here we have this Wooper. Does it look familiar? It should. This Wooper is an ancient ancestor to both Wooper and Chansey. My buddy Alex suggested this and I loved the idea, so I rolled with it. Chansey's ears or gills have always seemed like an odd feature for it to have, especially when compared to Happiny and Blissey, so this variant gives an explanation. Obviously, the gills are meant to reflect Chansey's gills, but also the pattern on its stomach emulates the Chansey line's egg pouches. This Pokemon was lost to the ages long ago, but its ancestors Wooper and Chansey still live on, carrying on its legacy. It is said that if you rub the pattern on its stomach, good luck and happiness will be brought to you. Now for the ghost type. As always, this one's going to get a bit spooky. Actually, though, this one is based on some things that are a bit creepy. Axolotls are frequently experimented on due to their incredible regenerative abilities. They can regenerate limbs, bones, or even portions of their brain. So here is our ghost type Wooper. Its gills are now a ghostly miasma, which are a reference to the axolotl's limbs being experimentally removed, but also phantom limbs. The feeling that some amputees can have where they get the sensation that their missing limb is still there. The pattern on its chest, like Paldean Wooper, is meant to emulate a rib cage, but unlike Paldean Wooper, it is more so meant to look like the ribs of a decaying zombie. This Wooper is the result of experimentation by Pokemon scientists who are looking to discover the secrets of infinity energy. It is seen skulking around abandoned laboratories, trying to exact revenge on the scientists who made it this way. Moving on, we have the psychic type. When looking at salamanders and axolotls for this video, I managed to come across the lavender axolotl, which just felt perfect for a psychic type. I also wanted to incorporate some aspects of divination and fortune telling, so here is this Wooper. Rather than a pattern on its stomach, it has gained a third all-seeing eye, which in many religions and popular media gives one clairvoyance, precognition, or enlightenment. Its feathery gills covering its eyes refers to the claim that individuals who have lost one of their senses, such as blindness or deafness, have their other senses heightened. Also, the idea of not using your eyes to see, but opening your third eye to see the truth. It is also a reference to headscarves worn by the Romani or Roma people, who are known to practice divination and fortune telling. This Pokemon only sees using its third eye, which it uses to see all around it and feel Pokemon's auras. It is not known if it even has eyes underneath its gills, or if it just covers them out of instinct. Now for the dark type. For this, I wanted to go in less of an evil direction, because how could this adorable face be evil? So instead, I opted to go in more of an Umbreon direction and reference the moon and nighttime. Right after deciding that, I found out about the speckled black salamander. The pattern on its skin reminded me of a night sky and stars, so it matched up perfectly. So with all that in mind, here is our dark type Wooper. Its gills are crescent moons, and the pattern on its stomach and tail are stars. This Wooper has adapted to only coming out at night. Its moon-shaped gills can glow in the dark, drawing in bug-type Pokemon for it to eat. Speaking of eating bug-type Pokemon, let's talk about this bug-type Wooper. This one is pretty simple. It's kind of a you are what you eat kind of thing, where this Wooper ate so many bug-type Pokemon that it became one itself over time. And I mean, if a Alolan Raichu can eat so many fluffy pancakes that it gains the psychic typing, this Wooper can do the same thing with bugs. Its design is mostly inspired by the mole cricket, but also its mouth is like Trapinch, a ground type based on a ground-dwelling bug. The gills are meant to look like antennae, and the little nubs on the chest and stomach are meant to reflect the pattern on the back of the mole cricket's abdomen. This Wooper likes to pester other Pokemon by burrowing underground so it can't be found, and then proceeds to make very loud noises. It gets great joy from feeling the vibrations of other Pokemon trying to look for it to no avail. For the rock type, we have this Wooper. Okay, I'm kind of proud of the pun here. This one is based on the marbled salamander, but it's literally a marble salamander. Its gills refer to the curly hair used in many marble sculptures, such as David or Venus de Milo, which I found especially funny given Venus de Milo doesn't have arms, and neither does Wooper. The capital I-shaped pattern on its stomach is based on Ionic columns found in Greek architecture, in which these kind of marble statues can be seen resting upon. And many Greek gods and heroes are the basis of these statues, which tie in with the Ionic columns' Greek origins. This Pokemon likes to pose dynamically to intimidate other Pokemon from attacking it. It is fairly fragile, so this is its best form of defense. Next up is the flying type. So here is this Wooper. As you can no doubt tell, this one is a bit out there, but let me explain. This Wooper is based on the wandering salamander. These little daredevils like to sometimes skydive from redwood trees in Northern California. You know, some of the tallest trees on the planet. They can stretch their feet and tail to help them glide to the ground safely. This was such a wild phenomenon, I had to feature it. So that brings us to this Wooper. These parachute-like gills can actually be stored in the little white pouches on the side of Wooper's face, like an airbag. This artwork is just illustrating what they look like in action. The symbol on its stomach should be pretty recognizable, as it's the symbol found on landing pads, usually for helicopters, which people can skydive from if they're real thrill seekers. This Pokemon likes to climb up high into mountains or buildings, and then jumps from them so it can use its gills to glide high in the sky. Now for the electric type. Here it is. Since this Wooper is an electric ground type, I thought, hey, why not reference electrical grounds? So the symbol on its chest is the icon for electrical grounds. The gills not only look like lightning bolts, but also reference the wires used to connect to an electrical ground. This Pokemon does something that no human should do, and uses its little fangs to bite into electrical wiring. Due to its typing, it can not only withstand the shock, but uses it to fuel itself. Like a little supercharged snack. If it gets caught snacking, it will bury itself in the ground to hide. While we're on the topic of the ground, let's talk about the pure ground type. I had a couple inspirations for this one, but primarily the Hellbender Salamander. This big guy is really good at camouflaging with the riverbed. Weirdly, that made me think of that one scene in Rambo 2 where he covers himself in mud to camouflage himself. So I kind of combined those ideas into this Wooper. I really wanted to avoid coming off as similar to Paldean Wooper since it's so brown and ground type looking already, so I used the more riverbed color of the Hellbender and covered it in a muddy camouflage-like pattern. The gills are just meant to look muddy as well, but they also kind of look like Sylvester Stallone's wavy hair covered in mud. Kinda. Look, I know it's a stretch, okay? This Wooper buries itself in the mud to hide from predators, but also to wait for prey to pass by so it can get a close-range strike. For the grass type, I found out a very interesting fact about the spotted salamander, which is just wild. It turns out when the spotted salamander lays its eggs, a photosynthetic algae called Euphylla amblystomatis grows on the eggs and shares a symbiotic relationship with them, eating the nitrogen waste the eggs create and then providing extra oxygenated water for the eggs. If you think that's cool, it gets even crazier. It was initially thought that the symbiotic relationship ended when these eggs hatched, but it has been discovered that the algae can be found in the cells of the salamander itself, making it the world's only known photosynthesizing vertebrate, which is absolutely insane. So here is our grass type Wooper that references this. The green spots on its chest reflect the spots of the salamander it is inspired by, but also the shape of the spots refers to the pattern on Pokéeggs, which connects back to the salamander's eggs relationship with the algae. Its gills are just meant to look like leafy appendages to further the idea of its grass typing. This Pokemon uses the special spots on its stomach to take in energy. It will also plant itself in the ground to rest, in which farmers will often mistake it for a crop and pull it up, awakening and angering this Pokemon. Next up is the ice type. For this, we have yet another wacky salamander that it's based on, the Siberian salamander. Like the well-known wood frog, this salamander can survive deep freezes, sometimes remaining frozen for months. But once it thaws, it can walk off like nothing happened. They are able to do this because they can somehow replace their blood with the chemicals of antifreeze. What? And I thought the last one was crazy. Anyway, here is our ice type Wooper. Its gills are now icicles, and the pattern on its stomach references ice cube trays. The coloration plays off of the Siberian salamander, but it also has a pretty gnarly inspiration that I won't show on screen. But it refers to severe frostbite and how the skin can turn black. Look that up at your own peril. I will not be held responsible. It is said that this Wooper came about when a group of them was forced from their home and pushed north to a harsh, wintry land that it had to adapt to. Now for steel. I won't lie, I probably had the most trouble coming up with this one, until I found out about something in metallurgy also called a salamander. It is a mass of solidified iron removed from a blast furnace to prevent it from blocking the tap hole. The kind of iron that blast furnaces are typically used for is called pig iron, which is smelted to make steel. So here is our steel type Wooper. The symbol on its stomach is a pig snout to reference the pig iron it is based on, and the gills are based on steel reinforcing bars, which are mainly used in construction. You can see them sticking out of concrete once it's been broken. This Wooper is known for its distinct ability to withstand heat. It loves to drink molten iron and even take baths in it. Speaking of heat, it's time for the fire type. This is another pretty simple one. I went with the mythological creature of the salamander, which in many depictions is a fire elemental of sorts. So here is our fire type Wooper. It has fiery gills and a fire pattern on its stomach, which is actually a pun and refers to the fire belly salamander. You could really say that this salamander has a fire in its belly. This Pokemon soaks up the intense heat of volcanoes and is even said to breathe fire. Fire breathing, kind of like a dragon. Oh yeah, let's talk about the dragon type. So for this, I went in a similar vein to the Dragon Oricorio in that of every type video, where the dragon typing is displayed through a large looming presence. Well, what has a large presence? How about a king or an emperor? Well, there is the Emperor Newt, but this little guy doesn't really have a big presence. What if we mixed it with a bigger salamander? No, how about the biggest salamander? And the biggest of them all is the Chinese giant salamander. So put all these concepts together and we get this Wooper. As you can see, it is a bit more busy design-wise than the others, but that is because it is the King Wooper. And it is huge, even bigger than a Quagsire. It is partly inspired by King Bob-omb from the Super Mario franchise. It has its crown and even its royal attire. The pattern on its chest references the toxic bulbs of the Emperor Newt, but also looks like the military uniforms worn by royalty. Its relationship to other Woopers, I imagine, is like the Alpha Dragon in How to Train Your Dragon, where no matter the species, this King Wooper commands them all. Let me know which of these Woopers was your favorite. Thanks for watching, and with that, I will see you guys next time. With the introduction of Wiglet in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, we technically have two differently typed Diglett forms in the franchise. So let's see what a Diglett and Dugtrio of every type might look like. Hey everyone, Brandon here. With all these Diglett and Diglett adjacent Pokemon coming out in recent generations, it got me thinking about a bunch of potential Diglett forms or even convergent Pokemon like Wiglet. But this was on my mind even before we were introduced to Wiglet, after I saw this supposed leak of a water-ground Diglett form based around geysers. And I'm sure you saw it circulating around as well. As it turns out, this leak and a few others were made by the talented PokeTour. So I partnered with them to make a bunch of new Diglett and Dugtrio forms. So starting us off is the fighting type. Diglett and Dugtrio are both based on the classic Whack-A-Mole arcade game. Their dex entries say they're a very great resource on farms because when they dig through the fields, the soil is perfectly tilled. But what if in another region, Diglett and Dugtrio were pests that just ate the crops on the farms and needed to be whacked to scare them off? Well, in comes these fighting type forms of Diglett and Dugtrio. Just kidding, here are the actual ones. They've been whacked one too many times, so now they are some angy little guys. In this region, they are highly aggressive crop munchers, and given their history of being whacked, they don't trust humans, especially farmers. If they see a farmer, it's like the dog with the mailman. They will chase that farmer to the ends of the earth, even if that farmer has never whacked them before. Their fighting type not only comes through in their aggressive nature, but also in that they have to fight to survive in this region. Due to the fact there isn't a regular abundance of the plant roots they were used to munching on in Kanto, so they have to eat the farmer's crops to survive, which they risk being whacked for. Next up is the electric type. For this, we have a convergent Pokemon called Outlet. It's based on lightning rods and the buildings that hold them. At the moment of making this video, Wiglet is the only convergent Pokemon we know about, and we don't even know how it evolves, so if these Pokemon break the rules of what a convergent Pokemon is, try to cut us some slack. Anyway, Outlet uses the electricity it gathers from its head to fuel itself. It usually likes to stay in one place, but when it moves, it tends to move in quick bursts. At level 26, Outlet evolves into Outlot. Unlike Diglett, Outlet doesn't evolve into 3 of itself and goes a more traditional Pokemon evolution route, becoming a bigger and more advanced version of its previous form. I decided to use the lot suffix in place of the trio because this Pokemon has a whole lot more to it than its previous form. Outlot expands upon the design elements of Outlet and adds these little lightning rods beside it that can be used to disperse extra powerful lightning strikes. Outlot tend to hang out in very high places, especially during thunderstorms. The energy they receive from these storms can sustain them for months. Next, we have some Ice and Ghost forms by Meowmistex. For Ice, we have Talassian Diglett and Dugtrio. Like the Alolan forms, these Diglett and Dugtrio have hair, but instead of on the head, they have beards! I cannot even begin to describe how happy these two make me. Talassian Diglett grew their beards to help regulate their temperature in the cold caves of northern Talassia. Whichever Diglett has the biggest beard is allowed to evolve and lead the group. When evolved, Talassian Dugtrio are extremely territorial and will fight to defend their home or even conquer new caves. Their beardedness and their territorial and conquering nature is a reference to Vikings. For Ghost, we have some more convergent Pokemon with Spooklet and Spooktrio. They're based on sheet ghosts. For this design, Meowmus played into the fact that many people thought Diglett's nose was a mouth with one little tooth. So the noses are meant to look more like open, shrieking mouths, like the Scream by Edvard Munch. If you've made it this far into the video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to keep up to date with future videos just like this one. Back to Poketorinized designs. Next, we have the Fairy type. For this, we took inspiration from the Star-Nosed Mole, who is kind of a freaky looking little guy. So here is a freaky looking little Fairy type Diglett that we made to match. Its nose is above its eyes and shaped like a hand. I promise this will make sense shortly. It evolves at level 26 into this Dugtrio. Do you get it now? It's a little priest/pope Dugtrio doing the praise hands. The fairy typing comes in with the holiness of those professions. Holy things are typically attributed with light in JRPGs and are a counter to dark things, just like the fairy type. These Diglett and Dugtrio are believed to have been blessed by Arceus itself, and try to share the light of Arceus with every Pokemon they meet. For the bug type, Poketour had the idea of switching the inspiration from the ground-dwelling mole to the ground-dwelling worm. So here is Buglet and Buglot. I know earthworms are not actually bugs, but they're bug adjacent and the concept fits really well. Also, Buglot adds in the inspiration of these sandworms from Dune. Unlike Diglett and Dugtrio, Buglet and Buglot eat the soil they plow through. Buglot will also eat anything in its path that is smaller than it, so watch out. Onto the poison type. For this, Poketour had the idea of changing the kind of mole that Diglett is based on, but not in the way you think. With that said, let's meet our poison type Diglett and Dugtrio. Instead of being based on the animal mole, they are instead based on a skin mole, specifically the cancerous kind like melanoma. These two infect the earth around them, causing a blight on the soil, making it inhospitable to any form of life. It is highly recommended to not interact with these Pokemon and avoid them at all costs. It is said that even if you manage to catch it, the Pokeball itself will rot and release them. Now for the rock type, we have Rocklet. It is based on mountains, but also those giant Diglett statues found in Galar. Rocklet are very slow moving and tend to stay in one place for long periods of time. If they stay long enough in one place, they will start to grow and their biology will begin to incorporate with the land around it. Rocklet evolves into Rockwad. Rockwad adds in the additional inspiration of Mount Rushmore, found near Keystone, South Dakota. Rockwad is so goofy and I just love it. Rockwad used to be rare to find, but with modern technology, it has become much easier to track them down. Next up is the flying type. This one is a pretty simple idea, but super cute nonetheless. So here is the flying type Diglett and Dugtrio. They're floating on little clouds Lakitu style. Dugtrio even has the little crown of the sun as an actual crown, looking like the sun peeking over the clouds. These Pokemon move unlike any other flying type Pokemon. There is seemingly no pattern to their movement and can freely fly in any direction. Flying makes them very happy, but if they're made sad or angry, their colors will darken and they will create fierce gusts of wind. For the normal type, Poketour and I agreed that there is nothing more normal than an actual mole. So here is normal Diglett and Duglot. Oh my god, it has appendages! The natural order is falling apart! In all seriousness though, Duglot is made to look more like real moles. But both Diglett and its coloration are taken from the golden mole, which actually isn't a true mole. They're the result of a real-life convergent evolution. It's a fun little twist on this video idea where the regional variant in evolution is actually based on the real-life convergent animal instead of vice versa. These two spend most of their time relaxing in deserts. Their bodies and fur are well suited for the heat the day brings and the cool of the night. Onto the grass type. What kind of plant life sticks just barely out of the dirt and is round like Diglett? Oh yeah, potatoes! So here is Spudlet and Spudtrio. Potatoes, one of the best and most versatile vegetables in cooking and now in Fakemon too. For Spudtrio, we used a mix of potato types, russet, golden, and sweet potatoes. Spudlet and Spudtrio not only till the soil they move through, but also enrich it as well, making them the perfect companion for farmers. Next, for the psychic type, Poketour had the idea of a Diglett popping out of a hat like a magician's rabbit. So here is Rablet and Rabduo. Rablet love carrots. They will travel great distances just to eat them, which actually isn't too difficult for them given that the magic hats they reside in can help them float to said carrots. Rabduo, while still a carrot lover, is more frequently found at magic shows being used to amaze and entertain children. For the fire type, we have Maglet and Magtrio. They are based on erupting volcanoes. Maglet are rare Pokemon, though they used to be much more common in ancient times. When they erupt, the temperature rises, even at distances up to 60 feet away. Magtrio surround themselves in hot magma to deter predators. Ancient cave writing seemingly tells the story of a giant Magtrio erupting, with its ash blocking out the sun and laying waste to the towns below. Next up, here are the dark forms of Diglett and Duglot. And just like the poison type, we changed the kind of mold that these two are based on. They're based on spies, specifically double agents, aka moles. Their designs take heavy inspiration from Sam Fisher from the Splinter Cell series, and even Speckles from the critically acclaimed Disney movie G-Force. These Diglett and Dugtrio are masters of espionage. They can silently pop in and out of the ground, walls, and even ceilings. For the dragon type, Poketor and I both thought a great inspiration would be the Hydra given Dugtrio's multi-headedness. So here is Diglett and Dugtrio. You can see instead of the usual dirt mound that Diglett and Dugtrio have surrounding them, it is instead a pile of gold to reference the Greek origins of dragons. In Greek, they're called Drakon, which means the Watcher, as apparently they were made by the gods to watch over their treasure. Diglett and Dugtrio will both keep their mound of gold with them wherever they go. If even a single piece of gold is misplaced, they will become enraged. It is said an enraged Dugtrio once terrorized a village, until a mighty trainer with many fire-type Pokemon came and bested it. And that's a Diglett and Dugtrio of every type. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Burmy has 3 different cloaks that change the secondary type of their evolution, Wormadam. So let's see what a Burmy and Wormadam of every type might look like. Hey everyone, Brandon here. And yes, it's finally here. A Burmy and Wormadam of every type has been requested a ton, so I'm excited to share it with you all. I just want to doubly clarify that I am aware that Burmy does not change type with the different cloaks, so technically this isn't a Burmy of every type, but you get the idea. The lovely Fungus Fakemon made all of these forms, so make sure to go check them out. So without further ado, let's begin with probably the most obvious type in this video, the Bug type. For this, we have Burmy and Wormadam no cloak form. These designs remind me of those pictures where they make the Pokemon naked. Just some real cursed stuff. Anyway, like I said, this one just felt obvious. Burmy's cloakless form has been seen in the anime and even had its own official artwork that was on the Pokemon website. For this video, we just posed it in the same way as other Burmy forms for consistency's sake. We didn't know what Wormadam would look like naked, so this is our best guess. This cloakless form of Burmy is rare to see, but what is even more rare is to see a cloakless Wormadam. The only way a cloakless Burmy can evolve into this form of Wormadam is if something has gone terribly, terribly wrong. Next, we have the poison type. For this, we have Burmy and Wormadam sludge cloak form. We definitely wanted to evoke a Grimer or Muck feeling with this design. Sad pictures incoming, but these two are a reference to oil spills or toxic waste dumping and the animals that are affected by it. This coat for Burmy is usually seen around big cities that have a lot of toxic waste. It seems when it evolves into Wormadam, it gains a sickness that can't be shaken. For the fighting type, we have Burmy and Wormadam punch cloak form. They just had to be punching bags. Their designs and concepts perfectly meld together with a punching bag, so much so that it was too good an opportunity to pass up. Both Burmy and Wormadam are based on bagworms, so this is literally a bag worm. Fungus added these little scuffs and dings to Burmy's face to add to this punching bag idea, which I love. Wormadam gained these appendages when evolving, so it made for a great opportunity to do a zero to hero narrative throughout the design. The weak kid that gets beat up and then comes back to beat his bullies, like Karate Kid. Burmy will enter into these bags because they're soft, comfortable, and padded, which provides great protection. But they seem to attract a lot of attention from other Pokemon and trainers who are looking to train up their effort values. When Burmy has reached its limit, they will evolve into Wormadam and start to fight back. Now for the normal type, we have Burmy and Wormadam bed cloak form. They are both in sleeping bags, with Wormadam's design adding in a little quilted poncho look. Guys, they are literally bed bugs. I mean, come on, how great is that? The concept of sleeping is a very standard thing, given we spend 1/3 of our lives doing it, and apparently Game Freak tends to agree with Pokemon like Snorlax, Slackoth, and Komala, who are all normal types that are known for sleeping. These Burmy and Wormadam are the coziest of any other cloak form. They will spend all day sleeping and only wake up to eat or if they sense danger. Next up is the fairy type. For this, we have Burmy and Wormadam party cloak form. It's party time! Viva Pinata! Filled with fun! Filled with fun! Esoteric kids shows / Xbox 360 games aside, these are of course based on piñatas, which are filled with sweets and are usually seen at parties, which totally fits the theming of a fairy type. This form of Burmy attaches thin strips of paper to itself to form this festive-looking cloak. Like the punch cloak Burmy and Wormadam, they both tend to attract a lot of unwanted attention due to their vibrant coloration. If you've made it this far into the video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to support this channel and keep up to date with future videos. On to the psychic type. For this, we have Burmy and Wormadam art cloak form. The psychic typing comes through in the expression of art, how we can see a brief glimpse into the mind of an artist through their work, and how we perceive that art in our minds. Wormadam also has this wacky mustache and unibrow, which gives off a psychedelic art feeling. The paper cloak they both have refers to the multiple ways paper is used in art, as a canvas, paper mache, and origami. These Burmy and Wormadam use berries to paint their cloaks. The paintings they create can warp the mind of the viewer, making them feel confused or sleepy. Next up is the flying type. For this, we have Burmy and Wormadam nest cloak form. Bagworms and birds both gather a variety of materials to build their structures, so it makes complete sense for the flying type, which was almost the bird type at one point, to be represented through a nest. An additional detail that Fungus added and I loved is that Wormadam's head and arms come together to look like a baby bird that just hatched. This form of Burmy is less particular about what it grabs to make its cloak, grabbing a mixture of items including feathers, fur, sticks, and grass. Once evolved into Wormadam, miraculously, it can fly short distances to avoid predators. Now onto the rock type. A running theme in these of every type videos is the difficulty of separating ground and rock type designs, and this video is no exception. Especially with the sand cloak already having rocks in its design. Make up your mind, Game Freak. Are rocks a part of the ground type or not? Rigus is literally a stone slab. Camerupt has rocky mountains on its back, but both are ground type. What are we doing here? Sorry about that. I guess I had some pent-up design frustration there. Anyway, here is Burmy and Wormadam gem cloak form. They are gems and crystals, because those are usually associated with the rock type. Except for Mega Steelix! Sorry, let that slip again. Anyway, Wormadam also look like a crystal chandelier, which is a fun design detail Fungus added. These Burmy typically seclude themselves to caves, where the loose rock and crystals are their only resource to build a cloak with. These Wormadam are considered to be a natural wonder, as their crystals shimmer against any amount of light the cave receives in a beautiful fashion. For the electric type, we have Burmy and Wormadam wool cloak form. Not only is wool associated with the electric type in the Pokemon world, but ours as well, with wool being a highly conductive material, which anyone who's worn a wool sweater and then tried to touch someone can probably attest to this. Also, part of Wormadam's arms look like little light bulbs. These Burmy typically hang out on farms where Mareep and Wooloo are found. Since they stay so still already, the paralysis effect that Mareep's fur can have doesn't really disrupt their way of living. The Wormadam have become one with the fur, building an immunity to the paralysis and even giving out its own shocking effect when touched. Next up is the water type. For this, we have Burmy and Wormadam shell cloak form. All kinds of sea life call shells their home, so why can't Burmy and Wormadam do the same? Wormadam adds in elements of aquatic plant life and different shell shapes to give off an almost mermaid-esque appearance, which, given all Wormadam are female, ends up working out really well. Burmy in this cloak hang from trees and caves that are close to beaches. They often have to fight other Pokemon for the shells they inhabit. When evolving, this Wormadam gains the ability to swim and hold its breath underwater for long periods of time. For the ice type, we have what feels like another obvious choice with Burmy and Wormadam's Snowcloak form. What is less obvious, however, is how it is executed. While of course meant to emulate snowballs and snowmen, they also have elements of winter clothing incorporated into their design. I really love the braids on Wormadam's head. It reminds me of how I am now learning to braid my daughter's hair. Most think that Burmy and Wormadam in this form must be freezing, but the way the snow is built around their bodies provides an insulation that traps their natural body heat. Now for the dragon type, we have Burmy and Wormadam Scale Cloak form. These are probably some of the most out there Pokemon I have ever made for this channel, but I love them. Somehow the dragon typing feels natural on Burmy. Fungus added this little tooth on its mouth, which really brings it all together. They both remind me of mid-stage pseudo-legendary Pokemon like Shelgon and Pupitar. Wormadam's little teeth coming out of its cloak make it feel like a little bundled up monster and evokes a where the wild things are kind of feeling. This form of Burmy picks up the leftover scales that many dragon-type Pokemon shed near where it inhabits. The infinity energy of evolution fuses with the draconic energy of the scales to create this monstrous Wormadam. Onto the ghost type. Before I came up with a punching bag for the fighting type, I had thought to wrap Burmy in bandages like a boxer's fists, but then I realized that's just a mummy. So here is Burmy and Wormadam mummy form. Rather than just being wrapped in bandages, Fungus took it a step further and made the little twig-like protrusions on Burmy look like the crook and flail of an Egyptian sarcophagus. And Wormadam has a bit of a sarcophagus peeking out underneath its bandages. These Burmy and Wormadam have been possessed by a Rigus. They used them to spread their mummy ability to Pokemon who think Burmy and Wormadam will be easy prey. Next up is the Dark type. For this, we have Burmy and Wormadam Shade Cloak form. These designs take inspiration from famous edgelords like Shadow the Hedgehog, Vincent from Final Fantasy VII, Sasuke and Itachi from Naruto, Reaper from Overwatch, and even the edgelord Pokemon itself, Darkrai. It also takes inspiration from the Reaper Cloth item, which evolves Dusclops into Dusknoir. You can really see the Reaper side of things in Wormadam with its two scythe-like appendages. These Pokemon use their darkly shrouded appearance to hide from potential predators. Not because they're scared, but to execute a sneak attack. The sharp appendages on Wormadam can slice through the rough skin of a Druddigon. Now for the fire type, we have Burmy and Wormadam Coal Cloak form. I know this verges on being a rock type, but I really didn't want to cloak these Pokemon in straight up flames because the cloak has to make sense for the Burmy to want to wear. Burmy, in an attempt to warm itself as much as it can, has wrapped itself in burning hot coals, which mysteriously don't damage it as a fire or rock type would. Wormadam has adapted to the heat and can withstand hanging inside an active volcano. And that's a Burmy and Wormadam of every type. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. What if there was a dog Pokemon of every type? Let's find out. Hey everyone, Brandon here. Throughout Pokemon's history, we have received many adorable doggo Pokemon. I mean, in this recent generation alone, we got 3 new lines. And I am talking about dog Pokemon, not Furbait Central over here. Cute quadrupedal doggos like Yamper, Lillipup, or Rockruff. With these parameters in place, we have 11 types to fill, so let's get into it. Starting us off is the ground type. For this, we have Sedamut, the dingo Pokemon, from the Agrios region by Fakemans. As its classification suggests, it's based on the dingo. Its ground typing comes from the habitat of the dingo, with it being able to live in the hot and arid deserts of the Australian outback, though it can be found all over Australia. The dingo's sandy brown coat also lends itself to the ground type. Sedamut love to dig holes everywhere. This leads to many people not liking them, but a large variety of Pokemon are able to find shelter in the holes that Sedamut leave unattended. At level 26, Sedamut evolves into Digingo, the dingo Pokemon. Its mudcake tail has evolved into a hand-like appendage that can act as a shovel. Given its name, I'm sure you can tell this tail gets used a lot. This actually refers to an aboriginal myth in which a dingo digs up an entire watering hole. There is an old Agrios legend that says the Digingo was responsible for digging up the many bodies of water around the region. Next up is the Ice type. For this, we have Furzin, the puppy Pokemon, from the Firen region by Michael Ryan. Furzin is based on the Icelandic sheepdog, whose ancestors were dogs that were brought to the country by Vikings. Furzin will do anything to make their trainers happy. They are easily excited and will pounce on strangers to lick them, which usually ends up freezing the lick recipient. After using a Ghost-type move 20 times, Furzin evolves into Snowwarg, the imprisoned Pokemon. Snowwarg is based on wargs, a kind of enormous wolf from Norse mythology, the most famous example being Fenrir. Legends say that Snowwarg created its icy chains to bind its true power. Otherwise, everyone and everything around it would be frozen solid. To learn more about Furzin, Snowwarg, and the Firen region, make sure to check out Michael's YouTube channel. For the water type, we have Dewolf, the puppy Pokemon by Mestiços region. Dewolf is of course based on Dalmatians, but also firefighters, which they are commonly associated with. Dewolf is very helpful. It can smell smoke from over 5 miles away, treat burns, and is even capable of dragging fully grown people and Pokemon out of burning buildings. At level 25, Dewolf evolves into Raynine, the Aqua Hound Pokemon. Raynine's name is taken quite literally with its now range-up-like spots, ears, and tail, and raincoat-esque appearance. Raynine is the go-to partner for firefighters. The fire department only needs to bring a single Raynine to extinguish many burning structures. The rest of the doggos in this video were made by myself and various artists who I will credit as we go. So first is the fighting type. For this, with the help of Tubbs-AZ, we have Scrap-Up, the scrappy Pokemon. Scrap-Up is inspired by the Indian pariah dog, which is native to the Indian subcontinent. Indian pariah dogs can be both wild street dogs and domesticated house dogs. They are quite intelligent and are commonly trained as guard or police dogs, which is where Scrap-Up's fighting type comes into play. You can also see the fur pattern around its wrists emulates the bandaged up fists of a boxer. Scrap-Up use their keen sense of hearing to detect nearby Pokemon battles. They will interrupt them and then try to take on both opponents at once. After using the move Bite 20 times, Scrap-Up evolves into a Mongrel, the Devil Dog Pokemon, a fighting dark type. Upon evolution, a Mongrel gains the additional inspiration of the Dhole, also known as the Asiatic or Indian Wild Dog. The dark striping of its wrist fur continues from Scrap-Up, but it also is meant to reference hyenas. Its dark typing and classification comes from the Dhole's nickname of the Devil Dog, or the Red Devil, which its horn-like ears and forked tail reference as well. A Mongrel's name comes from a Mongol, which means evil in Hindi, and Mongrel, which is a dog of no discernible type or breed, which plays into how it is a mix of 3 different animals. A Mongrel tend to start battles they have no intention of finishing. Once they want to be done, they can somehow persuade the Pokemon they are battling to target someone else. For these next two, I worked with Meowth decks. So for the grass type, we have Scottree, the leaf dog Pokemon. This little guy is inspired by the Scottish Terrier and the Skye Terrier, which are both Scottish dog breeds. Scottish Terriers were bred to hunt vermin on farms in the lush green Scottish Highlands, and the Skye Terrier hails from the also very lush and green Isle of Skye, so the grass typing felt very natural for it. Also, I thought the longer coats of both breeds looked like they would blend well into a leafy, almost hanging garden-like inspiration. Scottree's name is a mix of tree and Scotty, the nickname for the Scottish Terrier. Though we already had a partly Scotland-inspired region with Galar, I felt it could use some more representation in Pokemon. And it isn't at all because I'm 33% Scottish. Not at all. Scottree spend their days playing in fields and forests. It is said they used to come from the Galar region before they were moved to a new one out of risk of extinction. At level 26, Scottree evolves into Sithorn, the Kusith Pokemon. As its classification notes, Sithorn is based on the Gaelic mythological hound, the Kusith, which is also said to roam around the Scottish Highlands. The Kusith is a wolf-like creature with a dark green shaggy coat and a long curled tail, which lends itself well to a grass type with vines all over it. Sithorn also has the inspiration of the Scottish Deerhound, which were bred to stalk and hunt deer, just like wolves do. They also have a darker shaggy coat, like the Kusith. Sithorn patrol deeply wooded forests. If you are perceived as a threat, you will hear a few howls. You will have to act before the third howl or risk its wrath. Next is the dragon type. For this, we have Dogon and Drakend. Dogon is based on the Italian Greyhound, and Drakend is based on the English Greyhound. So how exactly do Greyhounds mix with the dragon type? Well, aside from their long, slender appearance, there is also a mythical beast called the Cali Greyhound. Though it isn't a dog like a greyhound, the commonality in the naming is what tied these elements together, as well as a few other elements. Italian greyhounds have been popular for a long time with nobility and royalty, and the Cali Greyhound was invented for a coat of arms of a noble family in the 15th and 16th century. Also, like the greyhound, the Cali Greyhound is known for its speed and swiftness. Dogon's name inspiration is pretty obvious, but it also sounds like Dogon, which is a synonym for dam, which most European dragons are damned or cursed creatures. Drakend's name comes from Drake and Hound, but also sneaks in end in there, as in the end you might meet when facing a dragon. Dogon are kept as loyal companions by nobility in a far-off region. They are said to possess a mystical power that allows them to outpace any prey they hunt. Drakend guard castles with fierce devotion. Their slender bodies allow them to chase prey into confined areas, ensuring they never escape. Due to their incredible speed and elusiveness, Drakend were once thought to be mythical creatures. The rest of the dogs in this video were made with the help of Trevenart. So for the steel type, we have Shibaleer, the brave Pokemon. From dragons to the ones that slay them, Shibaleer is based on Shiba Inus and Knights, both of which are loyal to their master. The pattern of its fur is like that of chainmail, and its tail shape gives the illusion of a little sword. Shibaleer's name comes from Shiba, chivalry, and chevalier, which is a synonym for knight. Shibaleer always keep their armor like fur shiny and well kempt. If even one hair is out of place, they can become as unruly as their hair. At level 26, Shibaleer evolves into Jinplar, the loyal Pokemon. Jinplar's name comes from Templar, which were an order of Christian knights, the Akita Inu, which are loyal and look like a big floofy Shiba Inu, and the Korean Jindo, another very loyal dog who bears a resemblance to the Shiba. There are actually two real stories about a loyal Akita named Hachiko and a loyal Jindo named Beiku that inspired this design. Hachiko waited for his owner to get off work at Shibuya Station every day. Even after his owner died at work, he would come back every day for 9 more years before passing away himself. There's actually a statue near Shibuya Station that commemorates Hachiko, and it started to get worn down from how many people would pet it. Beiku, on the other hand, was owned by an old woman on Jindo Island. The old woman sold her to a new owner that lived 180 miles away. Somehow, Beiku escaped from her new owner and over 7 months traveled all the way back to the old woman, who ended up keeping her as a reward for her loyalty. Loyalty is a big aspect of chivalry, so these two dog breeds naturally fit in with a knight theming. Jimplar's tail looks more like a full-on sword, and its fur has a more armored appearance to flesh out this knight aspect. Jimplar are extremely steadfast Pokemon. It will remain devoted to the trainer that caught them even after they are traded. Its steely resolution matches its steely appearance. On to the bug type. I was very curious how to make a bug dog Pokemon, given mammals and insects are two very different things. So I simply put bug dog into Google and it gave me this, a bug, also known as a pug and Boston Terrier mix. So with that in mind, here is Pug Grub and Bee Terrier. The big old goofy eyes of the pug melts perfectly into the giant eyes of a bug like a fly or dragonfly. Pug Grub emulates a grub, but also how little and chubby newborn puppies can be. Oh my goodness, look how cute they are! For Bee Terrier, we went with a more general bug look, giving it elements of caterpillars, bees, moths, and flies. Its name comes from beetle and terrier, but also sounds like bee terrier. Our channel members actually voted for this to be its name, so if you want to help in the video creation process, get sneak peeks at upcoming videos, and see videos early, become a member. It really helps more videos like this happen. Puggrub are ostensibly useless without the aid of a Beaterior. They survive off of sheer cuteness alone. Beaterior carry many diseases that prove fatal to humans and Pokemon alike, though their mouth and teeth are too small to actually bite anything to spread these diseases. Next up is the poison type. For this, we have Puppest and Burnoxic. They are inspired by St. Bernard's and the ever-famous Stephen King novel and horror movie, Cujo. For those unaware, Cujo is about a St. Bernard that goes rabid and terrorizes a mother and her child. This rabidness is how Puppest and Burnoxic get their poison typing. Their designs also play into the stereotypical depiction of St. Bernards, who have a barrel of brandy around their neck. And with brandy being a type of alcohol, this also folds into its poison typing. Puppest's name comes from puppy, pest, and pestilence, and Burnoxic's name comes from Bernard, toxic, and noxious. Puppest and Burnoxic have a sack on their throat full of incredibly toxic poison. One bite is enough to fell a Wailord in a matter of seconds. For the flying type, you know me, I love a good cloud motif, and there are plenty of floofy dogs that could combine with this idea, but the floofiest of all are the Pomeranian and the Chow Chow. So with that said, here is Pombus and Chowd. I gave them derpy names on purpose just to add to this cute factor, with Pombus being a mix of Pomeranian and Nimbus, and Chowd being, you know, Chow and Cloud. These designs also reference when you look up into the sky and try to see if clouds look like different animals. Pombus energetically play up in the clouds. They will chow down on rain clouds to stay hydrated, and are known to accidentally cause thunderstorms from the ruckus they create while playing. Chowd, on the other hand, are much more relaxed and choose to spend their time gently floating in the sky, trying to stay away from any trouble on the land. Next up is the Psychic type. My thought process for a Psychic type doggo was naturally to use the smartest dog as a base, and that title is held by none other than the Border Collie. So put those elements together and you get Prodigy and Mascali. Their names are based on Prodigy and Masquerade, but not just any masquerade, it's based on a... Yep, we brought in a Phantom of the Opera inspiration as well. The Phantom, whose real name is Eric, was a musical prodigy and genius who lived a sequestered life due to deformities he was born with, which he covers with a mask. Mascali reflects the Phantom in its mask and secondary ghost typing, and if you look closely at both Prodigy and Mascali, you can see that their snouts look like a creepy soulless eye. Prodigy are born with incredibly high intelligence. Some have even said they heard them speak to them. Mascali can turn thoughts into sound. It plays haunting melodies that can enchant any who listen to them. And that's a dog Pokemon of every type. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.